Hey everyone, welcome back. Chapters 1161 through 1180 of the previous episode. Qin Mu and his companions, including the Master of Creation Luo Xiao and the reincarnated ancient gods, successfully navigate the ancestral court. Qin Mu utilizes his improved soul guide and the Grand Emperor's consciousness to overcome the deadly void beasts, ultimately securing the Grand Extreme's mine. Through his interactions, Qin Mu realizes that the ancient gods' influence is fading, replaced by a new era dominated by half-gods and the rise of human-centric reform. In a pivotal encounter, Qin Mu and his allies reunite with the historical figures of the Dragon Han era, including Celestial Venerable Yun and Celestial Venerable Ling. Qin Mu gains crucial insights into the unchanging substance divine art, which he uses to battle the oppressive Celestial Venerables. After successfully navigating these perils and rescuing the spirit of South Deity Vermilion Bird, Qin Mu returns to eternal peace to prepare for the inevitable future conflicts. The narrative emphasizes Qin Mu's growth from a naive youth into a powerful, invincible great wizard, as he shoulders the burden of securing a future for humanity against the schemes of the Celestial Venerables and the ancient gods. If you're able to, please support me on PayPal to help me stay active. Thank you. Now let's get back to the story of Tales of Herding Gods audio series. Chapter 1181, Subduing the Mother Beast. Qin Mu thought about it and endured patiently. The 9 elders of disabled elderly village were also like this with him. Even though they were worried about him, they let him roam the martial world and rarely intervened. He was worried about the younger generation of eternal peace, but the younger generation also needed experience to grow. Mute lowered his head to search again and found a few more rocks. He said in astonishment, "The mine here is too ancient. Even these divine metals have spirits and formed natural divine weapons. There must be something big in this mine." He knocked on a few more rocks and they split open. Different treasures flew out from within, and there were beads, tiles, cauldrons, knives, and even a golden bull that grew as soon as it came into contact with the wind. It transformed into a huge monster and barged forward, knocking Apothecary over and swaggering off. Jiang Yunjian and the rest of the younger generation cried out in excitement. Even though some of them were injured, their injuries weren't serious. Mute let out a sigh of relief and said solemnly, "Blind, your eyesight is the best. Come and see where this mine leads to. Can you see the big guy in the deepest part of the mine?" Divine light burst forth from Blind's eyes and penetrated the ground, searching along the vein of ore. Suddenly, his body trembled, and he gave a loud cry before jumping back. However, a divine light broke through the surface and almost pierced through him. Everyone was shocked. The divine light pierced through the outer heavens of the glassy sky pagoda and flew outside, transforming into a long rainbow that was very gorgeous. Qin Mu's gaze was slightly dull. The divine light just now was a phenomenon caused by Blind's divine eyes prying into the treasure in the depths of the mine. The treasure automatically counterattacked. That treasure could actually pierce through the outer heavens of the glassy sky pagoda. Its power was truly terrifying. Divine King Shujun was also stunned. He scratched his head and muttered, "Isn't this the most dangerous and porous place in Ancestral Court? Why are there so many treasures here?" He was puzzled. The Masters of Creation had lived in Ancestral Court for billions of years. All of them knew that the most dangerous places in Ancestral Court weren't the 5 primordial mines, but the Big Blackwood Mountain ranges. Although the 5 primordial mines had all sorts of strange phenomena, they paled in comparison to the Big Blackwood Mountain ranges. The Masters of Creation dared to mine the 5 primordial mines, but they didn't dare to touch this place. "There's a bow inside." Blind had yet to recover from his shock when he said, "It's an extremely huge and strong bow. I only saw it for a split second and multicolored light filled up my divine eyes. If I was slightly slower, I would definitely have died." Qin Mu's heart stirred slightly and he asked, "How's the power of that bow?" Blind shook his head. "I'm not sure yet." Mute found another divine stone and knocked it open. A small flying knife flew out from the stone, and Qin Mu's 5 fingers opened up. With a gentle motion, he grabbed the flying knife. The throwing knife jumped around in his palm like a silver fish, but it couldn't escape his control. Qin Mu poured his vital qi into the flying knife. Swoosh! Knives flew out in all directions, and everyone hurriedly dodged. Only Apothecary, who had a shallow cultivation, was stabbed by dozens of knives on his body. Qin Mu jumped in shock and immediately treated Apothecary. Apothecary's body trembled as he pointed at him, speechless. Qin Mu's face turned slightly red and he coughed. The power of this flying knife isn't bad, and it can be compared to the divine weapons of gods and devils on the god execution stage realm. However, the runes in the flying knife are all naturally formed, so they aren't very exquisite, and their power isn't too strong. Mute said. However, the foundations of the divine weapons is surprisingly high. I have been forging divine weapons in eternal peace for over 10 years, and only ancestral quartz divine metals that Muir brought is the best. However, compared to the divine weapons born in this mine, the quality is still slightly inferior. His eyes lit up. With a little refinement, these natural treasures can be imprinted with the great Tao runes of eternal peace, and their power will be greatly increased. Muir, the divine metal you brought last time couldn't withstand your great Tao runes, so the divine sword exploded and became a broken sword. If it was forged with the divine metals found here, it wouldn't have exploded. Everyone exclaimed in admiration. Muir, you have indeed found a good place. Divine King Shujun finally couldn't take it anymore and said, this place is definitely not a treasure land. Not only is it not a treasure land, it's the most dangerous place in Ancestral Court. We can't stay here for long, let alone build a stronghold here. Qin Mu said with a smile, Divine King, you have also seen it. We have only found a single mine, yet there are already so many strange treasures. If we search this place, there will definitely be countless treasures. How can it not be a treasure land? Divine King Shujun was flustered and exasperated as he shouted. Even void beasts don't dare to enter here, so it must be dangerous. Qin Mu shook his head and said with a smile, I occupied this place. I killed countless of void beasts attacking the big black tree. Divine King Shujun was stunned and said angrily, anyway, this isn't a proper place. All the masters of creation are afraid of this place. They don't even dare to mention it. Qin Mu patted him on the shoulder and said with a smile, don't worry, I know what I'm doing. Grandpa Apothecary, there are still some plants on Big Black Peak, so there might be spirit herbs in Ancestral Court. Apothecary's eyes lit up. If there are rare herbs, I won't pursue the matter of being stabbed. If there aren't. His face instantly darkened and Qin Mu shuddered. Jiang Yunjian and the rest of the younger generation went through a lot of hardships and finally caught a few divine weapons. Those divine weapons were subdued by them, and only then did they become well-behaved. However, there were still some divine weapons that escaped. For example, that golden bull relied on its incomparably hard body and boundless strength to knock everyone over and escape. Luckily, the glassy sky pagoda was guarding this place, so it wouldn't be able to escape to the outside world. Everyone boarded the boat and sailed towards Big Black Peak. Before they even reached Big Black Peak, they saw a void beast with a huge physique coming towards them. Qin Mu was astonished and thought that the dragon Qilin and Yenner had been killed. However, wasn't the one standing on the head of the void beast the dragon Qilin and Yenner? He relaxed and was bewildered. Was this void beast subdued by Dragon Pi or Yenner? Yenner didn't seem to have cultivated her divine consciousness before, so it should be Dragon Pi. However, when did Fatty Dragon's divine consciousness become so strong? The dragon Qilin was abnormally excited as he jumped down from the back of the void beast. Cult Master, you guys are finally back. A lot has happened recently. He quickly talked about the strangeness of the night in the big black tree, and then he told them about the ever-changing elder who repaired the Black Mountains. He said, I even listened to his advice and captured this void beast mother. Qin Mu was astonished. Could that elder be? Wait a minute, you mean this is the void beast mother? The dragon Qilin's tail stood upright as he nodded repeatedly. Qin Mu was dumbstruck. The incomparably strong void beast mother was actually captured and subdued by the dragon Qilin. This was truly out of his expectations. Even Qin Mu himself didn't think he had the ability to subdue the void beast mother. The void beast mother was originally Grand Emperor's mount, and Qin Mu had spent a lot of effort to kill the previous void beast mother. The void beast mother, subdued by the dragon Qilin, should have just been born. Even though it was weak, this feat was still extraordinary. More importantly, no matter how strong or weak the void beast mother was, her greatest ability was to control the other void beasts. Qin Mu had always been worried that the void beasts would escape out of ancestral court and wreak havoc under the control of Grand Emperor. He didn't expect the dragon Qilin to settle it so easily. Suddenly, Qin Mu laughed loudly. The 10 celestial venerables are in trouble. Chapter 1182 Apothecary's Celestial Palace. Xu Jun was also dumbstruck. In the history of the Masters of Creation, void beasts had always been the dream mounts of the valiant warriors of the Masters of Creation. With a void beast, one's status in the clan would rise exponentially. Of course, Xu Jun never had a void beast. It wasn't because he wasn't strong enough. On the contrary, he was the strongest master of creation of his era and was honored as a divine king. Although the void beast was very strong, they were under the control of Grand Emperor, so Xu Jun didn't subdue them. Instead, he subdued another extremely powerful beast called Sacred Tranquility. Sacred Tranquility's battle prowess was very fierce, almost on par with the void beast mother. It was just that it didn't have the ability of the void beasts and cannot disappear into the void. Later on, ancestral court changed drastically, and the primordial behemoths here were extinct. Xu Jun's Bodhi behemoth had also died in battle with him in the blood rust zone. With the void beast mother, we can control the void beast to attack and harass the territories of other celestial venerables. If they covet our territories, we can attack and save them.
Qin Mu laughed.
Pa, you did very well. The dragon Qilin was very pleased. Qin Mu's thoughts became active and he calculated. We can still strike first to gain the upper hand. First ancestor, second ancestor. I'll bring you to the territories of the various celestial venerables to block on their gates. First ancestor human emperor said with a smile. Mu, you are already so big. And you are even celestial venerable Mu. You don't need our strength to block their gates. Qin Mu shook his head and said. It is I who will be bringing you guys to block their gates. To block their gates, there must be a strong practitioner overseeing it. I'll bring you to block the various minds of the celestial venerables, and let you witness the divine arts of the strong practitioners of celestial heavens. The past human emperors clenched their fists tightly with unfriendly expressions. Human Emperor Ishan sneered and said, If I wasn't unable to defeat you, I would beat you until Su Muja couldn't even recognize you. The other human emperors nodded, and first ancestor also nodded repeatedly. Qin Mu laughed loudly and said, This matter is decided then. I'll settle the matters here first, then bring you guys to meet them. He brought Apothecary to the dense vegetation of Big Black Peak and probed. Grandpa Apothecary, are the plants here spirit herbs? Apothecary bent down and examined a flower carefully. His expression became weirder. After a long time, he straightened his back and took out a silver needle to carefully poke the tender green leaves. The flower suddenly sank into the ground and escaped. Apothecary frowned and thought about it. He took out a spirit pill and carefully placed it in front of the small hole that the divine herb had left behind after escaping. After a moment, the divine herb carefully poked out another leaf and tested it. After confirming that there was no danger, it grew out again and used its roots to pull the spirit pill into the ground. The spirit herbs here are all rare and strange. I've never seen them outside. Apothecary looked around and said solemnly, As for their medicinal effects, I still need to examine them in detail. As strange. He came to the front of another spirit herb, and that spirit herb was actually strong that its medicinal energy actually transformed into Tao markings, forming the apparitions of all kinds of runes. Apothecary's heart trembled violently as he carefully examined the structure of each section of the medicinal plant. After a long time, he let out a shaky breath and muttered, My path is about to be formed. He couldn't help tearing up, yet Qin Mu was ecstatic with joy. Qin Mu raised his head to look at the sky and muttered, My path is also about to be formed. Apothecary kicked him away and said angrily, You only know how to gnaw on your elders every day. If you had put in more effort, this path would have long been formed already. Qin Mu rubbed his buttocks and said righteously, I'm busy with even more things every day. I have to run around and comprehend all kinds of divine arts, paths, and skills, so how would I have the time to comprehend the path of medicine? Of course I will gnaw on you elders. Apothecary saw that he still dared to talk back and wanted nothing more than to stuff poison into his throat. Qin Mu immediately left and saw the dragon Qilin, Yenner, helping the people of eternal peace to settle down. When they were settled down, Qin Mu called them over and asked about the elder who didn't have a fixed appearance. After a long time, Qin Mu's gaze flickered and he said, "He seems to know everything? He actually knows that I taught you the three enclosures: higher knowledge, the great overarching supreme consciousness, and also about the birth of the void beast mother. Before this, ancestral court had always been sealed, and it was only when we came here that the seal was lifted. However, it wasn't completely unsealed. In that case, this mysterious elder can only be the god born from that mysterious and unfathomable chaos mine," Yenner said. "He has been carrying buckets of water to repair the shattered divine mountains. These divine mountains are terrifying. This is the Tao of exchange," Qin Mu said with a calm expression. "The total sum of the universe is forever constant. The process of the universe's destruction is the process of turning matter into energy. The birth of the universe is the process of turning energy into matter. Even though these terrifying creatures came from their past universe that had already been destroyed, they still have to follow this principle. With this black tree, a passageway between past and future is formed." He paced back and forth as he pondered. "They use the void beasts to steal a part of the substance from our universe and move it into the past universe. Then when there's less substance here and more substance there, they can take the chance to swap over and come into our world. In other words, in the previous universe, right beside the roots of the big black tree, they held a reverse summoning ritual to steal the substance here. That's why you saw the piles of void beasts' corpses quickly decaying, losing their blood, muscles, and even bones in just a few days." Qin Mu raised his head and looked into the distance. He clenched his fists and said, "That ancient god handled things very badly. He sealed the mountains of this big black tree, but our universe still lacks a part of the substance. That universe of the past still has another part of the substance. They will come back sooner or later. Sealing the black mountains is only treating the symptoms, not the root cause." "Well said." Just as Qin Mu finished speaking, he heard a voice exclaiming in admiration, "Celestial Venerable Mu is right." As expected of the title Celestial Venerable Mu, Qin Mu looked towards the source of the voice and saw a person who looked like a scholar had appeared behind them at some point in time. He was holding a folding fan and had a graceful bearing. His appearance was handsome, but also held a feminine charm. Qin Mu looked at the dragon Qilin and Yenner, and they hurriedly shook their heads. He said in a low voice, "Every time he comes, the gender is uncertain, the face is uncertain, and the race is uncertain. We also don't know if it's him." Qin Mu greeted him and said, "May I ask how I should address Tao brother?" The scholar clapped his hands with his folding fan and returned the greeting. "People of the later generations call me Grand Derivation. Celestial Venerable Mu also took the eggshell I was born with." Qin Mu's face turned slightly red and he said, "When I see a treasure, I can't help being tempted. Tao brother, do you plan to take it back?" The scholar shook his head. "It's useless to me." Qin Mu let out a sigh of relief. He had never planned to return it to Grand Derivation. Scholar said too easily, "Celestial Venerable Mu, we have actually met before." Qin Mu was astonished and asked, "May I ask where we have met before?" "A million years ago. I was the huge Kuan that carried Celestial Venerable Mu, Celestial Venerable Qin, and the rest to roam Dragon Han Celestial Heavens." Grand Derivation, with a scholarly appearance, opened his folding fan and smiled. 600,000 years ago, when Celestial Heavens split and Great Sun Sovereign released the heavenly roaring dogs in search of Celestial Venerable Gong, I was one of the dogs who ran past you. When Celestial River crashed down, I too was a mortal that was running for his life under Celestial Venerable's feet. Chapter 1183. Scholar is too easy. Have a drop novel you want to read more chapters of? Qin Mu stared with his eyes wide open and said with a smile, "I didn't expect our brother to pay so much attention to me." Scholar Tai shook his head and said, "I'm not only paying attention to you. In fact, I'm paying attention to many people. One of the little bamboo horses that examined Celestial Venerable Ling's manuscript was me. I'm also a peach in Celestial Venerable Yu's peach forest. I'm also a fish that founding Emperor Qin Yi fished up, a ghost beside Earth Count, or a star that floated past Heaven Duke's eyes, or a white hair of Celestial Venerable Hao." He plucked it out and threw it away. He said with a smile, "I've been to too many places, seen too many people, and left a heavy mark in the history of the boundless universe. I've met all of them. I even saw you giving up your own Tao and returning to the Tao of the celestial palaces and celestial heavens. That was why I sighed. At that time I was a tear that fell from your eye. Qin Mu's body trembled slightly. He remembered that after he consulted Xu Jun, he had abandoned his original path and chose to cultivate the celestial palaces and celestial heavens. At that time he couldn't help but cry as he heard a faint sigh. He composed himself and asked curiously, Tao brother has remarkable abilities, yet you returned here. What is the reason? Tai smiled too easily. I've always been here, so I can't say if I'm coming back or not. Qin Mu knew that the realm was too easy, and he couldn't figure it out or understand it. Maybe if he didn't give up on that path back then, he could still cultivate to his realm, but it was no longer possible now. Scholar Tai looked around and said, This tree is a very dangerous place. It runs through every universe era, and the strong practitioners of that era all want to crawl here from the past to avoid death. You chose this place as your territory, so we can be considered to be fated.
Qin Mu smiled.
It's all thanks to the guidance of those two ancient gods in the Taiji mine. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to obtain the #1 treasured land of the ancestral court. Scholar Tai had a weird expression, but he didn't say much. This was originally my place, but since you treat this as your territory, you have to do something to protect the ancestral court. Qin Mu said with a straight face, Tao brother, please instruct me. Scholar said too easily, as you said. I can only delay sealing the Black Mountain for a period of time. I can't prevent any future troubles. In the future, the Black Mountain will still collapse, and those past eras will still try to invade. What you want to help me with is this. Of course. Qin Mu agreed readily and smiled. If an enemy invades my place, I'll have to rely on Tao friend. Scholar Tai didn't expect him to make such a request. He thought about it and smiled. I'll do as you say. Qin Mu let out a long sigh of relief. He knew that his abilities and power couldn't be compared to the 10 celestial venerables, and he had always been treading on thin ice. Now that he had obtained the #1 treasured ground of the ancestral court, he was always worried that he wouldn't be able to defend it. However, with Tai Yi's words, even if the 10 celestial venerables personally make a move, they probably wouldn't be able to take away this #1 treasured ground of the ancestral court. Little did they know that the 10 celestial venerables also didn't take a fancy to this #1 treasured ground of the ancestral court. With Tai Yi here, I can bring first ancestor and the rest to block the door with ease. Qin Mu rubbed his palms together and was inexplicably excited. In the past, Tao ancestor brought Lin Xian, Rulai brought Fozi, and all of them went to block Imperial College. Chancellor Ba Shan also brought me to block Roland's Golden Palace, but it was all the elders giving encouragement to the younger generation. When the elders sat there, they didn't look impressive at all. The other party could only obediently follow the rules, or else the elders would flip out. This time I, a junior, will bring my elders to block the territories of the 10 celestial venerables. If anyone dares to not follow the rules, I will flip out. In any case, if I create a huge mess, I'll just hide in the Black Mountains. Even if the sky collapses, Tai Yi is here to prop it up. Ancestral Court, Grand Primordium Mine. The celestial heavens couldn't be defended without a celestial venerable. The Shao sect sent his proudest disciple Gao Huaitong to guard this mine. As a human celestial venerable Shao treated all races equally, but he hated the ancient gods. Gao Huaitong wasn't a human, but a half-god with outstanding talent who had cultivated to the emperor's throne realm. Gao Huaitong had just settled down and ordered his subordinates to enter the mine to mine the divine stones when a god came to report, saying, Celestial Venerable Mu brought over 20-odd people and said that they are here to pay a visit. They want to block the gate according to the rules and challenge the disciples of Celestial Venerable Shao. The rule of blocking the door? Gao Huaitong was bewildered. When has our celestial heavens ever had such strange rules? He invited Yan Qiling over and asked, Little junior sister, you stayed in the lower bound before, and this Celestial Venerable Mu came to block the gate. Do you know the rules of the lower bound? Yan Qiling said, There's an unwritten rule in the lower bound. When elders bring juniors to block the gate to challenge, they have to fight on the same realm. Both sides can't break this rule, or else they will lose face. However, there's actually a rule in this rule, and that is that elder must have the power to intimidate the other. Gao Huaitong said with a smile, the people of the lower bound are all hooligans, ignorant and incompetent. They actually created such a weird rule. There's no such thing as blocking the gate in the celestial heavens. However, even though Celestial Venerable Mu's abilities aren't good, his reputation is well known, so we can't neglect him. Little junior sister, your abilities are outstanding, and you rarely meet a worthy opponent in the same realm. Go and send him away. Yin Qiling shook her head. I fought him several times, but I never won. Gao Huaitong's expression changed slightly, and he said hesitantly, you can't beat him and I can't beat him. The god that reported the news said, this time, it's Celestial Venerable Mu holding the fort. He said he wanted others to challenge him. Gao Huaitong couldn't help but laugh. If Celestial Venerable Mu had challenged him himself, I would have been slightly afraid of him. I didn't expect him to have the guts of a bear and the guts of a leopard, to actually let others challenge him. Forget it. Us senior and junior brothers will compete with the people he has brought, letting him know the immensity of heaven and earth. He led over a dozen of Celestial Venerable Zhao's disciples out to welcome them, and they saw Qin Mu taking the small fast ship to the outside of the mine. There were indeed people of all shapes and sizes on the ship, some tall, some short, some fat and some skinny. There were only 2 or 3 people that could still be seen. The conflict between these people seemed to be very deep. They didn't like anyone and almost got into a fight when they were squeezed onto a ship. The one they hated the most was still Qin Mu. Everyone on the ship looked at him with displeasure. Gao Huaitong greeted Qin Mu and said with a smile, Celestial Venerable Mu has come to visit. I was negligent in welcoming you, please forgive me. Celestial Venerable led these Dao friends to block the gate. So my Celestial Venerable Zhao's lineage naturally can't lose the name of master, so I agreed. Qin Mu said politely, don't worry disciple nephew, my people know their limits. Speaking of which, they are all my elders. I'm also worried that they will neglect their cultivation and slack off. I want to borrow the hands of your disciples to train them. Human Emperor Qikong, Human Emperor Yishan, and the rest were furious. The 2 of them exchanged pleasantries, and Gao Huaitong invited Qin Mu to the seat of honor. Qin Mu said earnestly, Grandmaster ancestors, I've suppressed the situation, you can't embarrass me. Human Emperor Qikong jumped out and said angrily, Qin brat, you cheated your master and killed your ancestors. Let us fight first. Gao Huaitong looked at Qin Mu with a smile, and Qin Mu said apologetically, nephew, this is my grandmaster. He has a bad temper but he also has some abilities. Nephew, choose an expert and beat him to death. Human Emperor Qikong was so angry that smoke was spewing out from his 7 orifices. His body trembled and multicolored light shone brightly behind him. 3 celestial palaces accompanied by the sound of a bell leaped out from the multicolored light. I have cultivated with First Ancestor all these years, and I have seen all kinds of Emperor's throne techniques. In this life, I'm even more courageous and fierce. Qin, don't care about other people. Let's fight according to the rules of Hall of Human Emperors. Gao Huaitong smiled at Qin Mu and said, Celestial Venerable, look. Qin Mu said with an apologetic face, my elders are unruly and hard to tame. Nephew, wait a moment. I'll teach them a lesson first. He stood up and Human Emperor Qikong was completely focused on guarding against him, waiting for him to attack. Qin Mu took a step forward, and a deafening explosion rang out. Everyone's qi and blood churned from the tremors. When they looked at Human Emperor Qikong again, he had already been smacked into the ground of the ancestral court. Qin Mu returned to his seat and said with a smile, he's obedient now, we can start. Human Emperor Qikong crawled out from the ground, and his face was covered in dirt. However, he was in high spirits and didn't take his failure to heart at all. He laughed loudly and said, who will be the one to enlighten me? Chapter 1184. The ancestral court blocks the door. The eyes of the numerous disciples under Celestial Venerable Shao lit up. Human Emperor Qikong had just revealed 3 celestial palaces, and his aura was like a rainbow. Even though he was powerful, Qin Mu's slap to Human Emperor Qikang's face revealed the true nature of this burly man. The disciples of the 10 celestial venerables of the celestial heavens only cultivated 1 celestial palace, which was considered mediocre. Only after cultivating 2 to 3 celestial palaces could they be considered to have entered the sect. Many disciples had 3 to 5 celestial palaces, and some even cultivated more than 10. To the disciples of the 10 celestial venerables, it wasn't difficult to obtain Emperor's throne techniques. The 10 celestial venerables had collected 200 to 300 Emperor's throne techniques. In order to cultivate to the celestial heavens realm, one didn't have to rely on the number of Emperor's throne techniques, but the variety. One only needed 36 Emperor's throne techniques of different systems to fuse together and achieve mastery. By unifying them into one technique system, one could theoretically cultivate to the celestial heavens realm. However, finding 36 Emperor's throne techniques of different systems was too difficult, and fusing them was even harder. I'd better pick a soft one. A young god came forward and said with a smile, "Senior brothers, let me fight him. My abilities aren't high, so beating him is just right." As soon as the two of them exchanged blows, the expressions of the disciples of Celestial Venerable Xiao, Gao Huaitong, and Celestial Venerable Xiao changed. When human Emperor Qikong was smacked into the ground by Qin Mu, people had looked down on him. However, the battle power that human Emperor Qikong had displayed was incomparably astonishing. When he fought with that young god, not only was he not at a disadvantage, he even had the upper hand. Human Emperor Qikong walked the path of entering the path with martial arts, and what he cultivated was fist skills. He used his body as a volcano and his vital qi as firepower to unleash great power. After he reincarnated, Qin Mu sent martial arts heavenly teacher Guancha's martial arts heavenly technique to the various academies. Hall of Human Emperors also had a copy. In addition, First Ancestor Human Emperor had opened the treasure vault of Jade Brightness Palace's techniques. Jade Brightness Palace's treasure vault was filled with all kinds of techniques and divine arts from founding emperor era, allowing human Emperor Qikong and the rest to advance by leaps and bounds. Qikong continued on the path of entering the path with his martial soul. His talent was high to begin with. After all, Hall of Human Emperors only had one successor in every generation, so almost every generation of human emperors had the highest aptitude and talent. He was village chief's teacher and village chief's guide. His talent was also extremely high, and he had even walked further than Qin Mu in martial arts. The explosive power of his fist skills was even more astonishing, forcing the young god to retreat step by step and scattering his primordial spirit. Gao Huaitong saw that the situation was bad and made a prompt decision. He said solemnly, "Junior brother, you've already lost. Come down." Suddenly, a loud explosion rang out, and the young god coughed up blood from his 7 apertures. He fell to his knees. Human Emperor Qikong retracted his fist and chuckled. "I've won. Old man, it's your turn next. Don't embarrass me." Human Emperor Ishan cursed as he walked forward and scolded. "I'm your master after all. What do you mean by losing face?" He was short, and although he was Qikang's master, the path he took was completely different from Qikang's. He had entered the path with divine arts. Ishan walked to the front of the formation, but he didn't immediately challenge Celestial Venerable Zhao's disciple. Instead, he looked at Qin Mu and sneered. "There's no point in fighting these disciples of Celestial Venerables. If you want to fight, fight the strongest one. Come down." Qin Mu apologized to Gao Huaitong. "My elders lack discipline, so I'll go teach them a lesson first. Everyone, please wait a moment." Gao Huaitong and the rest had weird expressions. Are they here to block the door or to beat up their own elders? Hearing this, Qin Mu shouted angrily, "Old man, are you very cocky? If you don't fight for 3 days, you will be exposing the roof tiles. Why don't all of you old fellows come at me together? I will teach all of you a lesson first." Gao Huaitong and the rest looked at each other in dismay. On the other side, Qin Mu raised his hand and waved it down. With a move, great overarching heavenly completion formation, he almost transformed human Emperor Ishan into a plane without any thickness and hung him in the sky. Only then was human Emperor Ishan convinced. This short fatty looks very weak. Everyone looked at human Emperor Ishan, who was covered in dirt, and a thought popped up in their minds at the same time. Could they be playing a double game? This short fatty purposely lost to Celestial Venerable Mu in one move so that we would look down on him, and then he would use his full power to defeat us when we least expected it. They had misunderstood Qin Mu and the human emperors. No matter if it was Yishan or Qi Kong, they had both used their full strength when facing Qin Mu. It wasn't because they were weak, but because Qin Mu's abilities were too terrifying, they still lost in one move. As for challenging Qin Mu before beating up Celestial Venerable Zhao's disciple, it was related to the rules of Hall of Human Emperors. The rule of Hall of Human Emperors was that disciples didn't learn their master's techniques and had to work hard to walk a different path from their masters. Furthermore, disciples had to be stronger than their masters, so it was common for disciples to beat their masters when their masters cheated them. The Hall of Human Emperors had also formed a peculiar tradition, which was the kinship between generations. Master and disciple would start fighting the moment they met, but they were very close to Patriarch Ancestral Master. When it came to Qin Mu's generation, the rules changed again. When Qin Mu fought from Qi Kong to First Ancestor Human Emperor, the human emperors were naturally unconvinced and wanted to teach him a lesson when they had the chance. However, they were always taught a lesson by him. When the various human emperors challenged the formation, there were winners and losers. The winners celebrated, while the losers were teased by the other human emperors. However, everyone had to challenge Qin Mu first before they could challenge him. They only went to challenge Celestial Venerable Zhao's disciple after being beaten up by him. The disciples of Celestial Venerable Zhao looked at each other. They didn't know if they were here to block the gate or to be beaten by Qin Mu. However, Celestial Venerable Zhao's disciples could also see how strong and strange these human emperors were. The number of celestial palaces that the human emperors cultivated wasn't much, so logically speaking, they couldn't be compared to them. However, no matter if it was the thickness of the vital qi or the exquisiteness of the divine arts of these human emperors, they weren't inferior to them. They were even stronger. This was the benefit of Eternal Peace's reform. The past human emperors were all people who had cultivated the celestial river divine treasure. With the influence of the reform, their battle power wasn't inferior to the disciples of celestial venerables like them. They finally reached First Ancestor Human Emperor. First Ancestor Human Emperor walked forward and looked at Celestial Venerable Zhao's disciple before looking at Qin Mu. He opened his mouth but didn't say anything. Qin Mu understood and apologized to Gao Huaitong. This is First Ancestor of Hall of Human Emperors, and he is also the 100th generation old ancestor of my Qin family. Even though I have been removed from the family register, he is still my senior, so I have to beat him up. After saying that, he stood up again. Gao Huaitong was rather unhappy. Ever since Qin Mu came here to challenge him, his aura had been suppressed by Qin Mu, and Qin Mu had always held the initiative. Without interacting with Qin Mu, they had no idea how strong his aura was. In the past, he had been sent out by Celestial Venerable Zhao to be a vassal outside of the city. Although he had heard of Qin Mu's name, they had never crossed paths. He was like the other disciples of the Celestial Venerables, thinking that Qin Mu was just a lucky young man who had coincidentally won the title of Celestial Venerable. However, after interacting with him, he realized that Qin Mu's reputation wasn't undeserved. Please wait, Celestial Venerable. Gao Huaitong stood up and said with a smile, since it's this battle, let me do it. The competition between your fellow disciples can wait until this battle is over. He wanted to suppress Qin Mu's aura, so his method was simple. He wanted to defeat First Ancestor Human Emperor in a straightforward manner. As long as First Ancestor was defeated by him, even if he was defeated by Qin Mu, he wouldn't be able to hide his sharpness. Those who could cultivate to the Emperor's throne realm weren't people with undeserved reputations. His judgment was very accurate. First Ancestor Human Emperor looked at Gao Huaitong, who was walking over, and gave a slight bow. His body then straightened up, and he stood upright like a mountain in a deep pool. He didn't move and didn't move. Standing there, he was like the center of a boundless world, and all worlds revolved around him. Gao Huaitong's heart jumped. First Ancestor Human Emperor wasn't really motionless, but his Dao heart was. Is this a person from Eternal Peace? In his Dao heart, this person's frame of mind is the strongest. When I returned to the celestial heavens, my master, Celestial Venerable Zhao, mentioned founding Emperor's cultivation system of the Dao realm, and he was full of admiration. This first ancestor Qin Wu should have walked the Dao realm system. Chapter 1185 Kaneichi. Gao Huaitong was astonished. He didn't look down on First Ancestor Human Emperor at all. Celestial Venerable Xiao held founding emperor's system of Dao realm in high esteem, and he felt that the system of Dao realm was the most crucial link to the system of celestial palaces. The celestial palace system was created by Celestial Venerable Yu, and Celestial Venerable Mu and Celestial Venerable Hao deduced it. Countless people later on perfected it, and the celestial palace system had a huge flaw, which was the emphasis on power. Every time the celestial palace system rose by a realm, its power would increase substantially. This kind of improvement was built on the foundation of the Dragon Han celestial heavens, which became the symbol of Tao in the hearts of the gods that had entered the god realm. However, this cultivation method neglected his comprehension of the Tao. Founding Emperor Qin Ye's system of Tao realm made up for this point. He advocated comprehension of the Tao and entered the Tao layer by layer, approaching the essence of the Tao. When combined with the strong power of the celestial palace system, his abilities and cultivation would increase by leaps and bounds. Gao Huaitong agreed with Celestial Venerable Zhao's words. This kind of agreement was based on founding emperor splitting open the celestial heavens with one sword. That day, when founding emperor attacked the celestial heavens and split it apart with a sword, all the gods felt the shock and fear from the split of the celestial heavens. Of course, the celestial heavens didn't completely split apart, so the shock and fear of all the gods only lasted for a short while. After that time, the shock and fear vanished, and most of the gods didn't take this matter to heart. Gao Huaidong was a minority. He deeply felt that his Tao heart was about to split open, and the shock in his heart was also incomparable. If the celestial heavens really split open, what would happen to the gods of the world? Would their Tao hearts crumble because of this? Would their celestial palaces lose their divine power because of this? This was the most terrifying. He also realized that founding emperor's system of Tao realm could make up for this point. They cultivated together, so even if the celestial heavens was destroyed, his Tao heart wouldn't collapse because of it. It was just that he was still in the stage of fumbling and entering the Tao realm. He saw the temperament of first ancestor human emperor, and realized that this person was a great practitioner of the system of the Tao realm. He didn't dare to be negligent and bowed. "May Tao friend enlighten me." The two of them greeted each other before brazenly attacking. Gao Huaitong had only executed his numinous sky realm cultivation, but the first move he made was the great divine art of Emperor's Throne. Behind him, celestial palaces leaped out one after another, thousands of palaces and tens of thousands of palaces, towering like mountains. He was well aware of the power of the realm system. One realm was the first heaven, and the other was the second heaven. If he probed carefully, when the other party executed a profound realm, he would probably end up with a grievance. First ancestor human emperor was still the same as before. He looked calm and collected, and with a hook of his hands, a scene of heaven and earth collapsing instantly appeared. He stood in the center of the crumbling heaven and earth like a pillar. Sacred secrets of heaven and earth heart. His divine art was the imprint of an era. That era was an era where courtesy collapsed and joy crumbled. It was an era where devils danced and devils danced. It was also an era where the heavens collapsed and the earth split. He wanted to establish his heart for heaven and earth, to establish his life for the people. Their divine arts collided, and Gao Huaidong immediately felt as if he was in the midst of a grand and magnificent calamity. The divine art he had attacked had become a part of the other party's crumbling heaven and earth, becoming the power to assist the other party's divine art. First ancestor's sacred secrets of heaven and earth heart was such a technique in divine art. At that time he was young and weak. In the chaotic world, he could only use the power of heaven and earth collapsing to fight his enemies. Any enemy's attack would become a part of his power. This technique and divine art would become stronger and braver in battle. Gao Huaitong was, after all, an existence on Emperor's Throne realm. When he realized this, he immediately changed his divine art and gave a long roar. Kanate Chi. His divine art changed drastically, giving people the feeling that all paths were converging. It went straight in, making first ancestor human emperor helpless. Qin Mu's expression changed slightly, and he looked at Yan Qiling. Yan Qiling had once executed a similar divine art, and it should be a divine art transformed from Celestial Emperor's own great Tao. This qi of the first heaven gave Qin Mu the feeling that it was Celestial Emperor's true ability. However, Why would Celestial Emperor impart his true abilities to Gao Huaitong and Yan Qiling? What Celestial Venerable Xiao taught them should be incomplete. However, it's still extraordinary. Qin Mu thought to himself, if Celestial Venerable Xiao had personally executed the first Qi of Khanate, this power. He was astonished. Celestial Venerable Xiao was probably one of the strongest existences among the 10 Celestial Venerables. Gao Huaitong's divine art was incomparably overbearing, and it immediately broke through First Ancestor's divine art. At the same time, First Ancestor's divine art transformed, and he no longer borrowed the power of the collapsing heaven and earth. Instead, what replaced it was his Tao heart that was like a scorching fire burning the prairie. His Tao heart changed, and his divine art also changed. He was skilled in Madras skills, and he had already stepped into the path in the founding Emperor Calamity 20,000 years ago. Now his realm was even deeper. However, it was different from comprehending the divine art of entering the path in the Great Calamity 20,000 years ago. His divine art of entering the path now revealed a kind of spirit that could change heaven and earth. It was indestructible and could fight head-on with Gao Hui. Gao Huaitong's divine art was like the wind breaking the waves, a long wind, 10,000 waves and 10,000 waves. The area covered by the divine art was extremely vast, and its power was boundless. First Ancestor Human Emperor's Madra laws were even more restrained. The range of his divine art's power was no longer than a square inch. However, when its power burst forth, it was extremely terrifying. This was the style of the divine art of Founding Emperor era. The divine arts of Founding Emperor era were usually reserved. They didn't seek to be big, only small. In an extremely small space, the power of their divine arts would explode to the extreme. Qin Mu looked on with delight. He was also quite curious about First Ancestor Human Emperor's current abilities. He hadn't seen First Ancestor for many years. Back then, First Ancestor was on the Jade Capital realm. Even though his realm wasn't high in a place like the celestial heavens, his abilities were very strong. The time when his cultivation rose the fastest was the end of the Founding Emperor era. He had led countless races to escape with the humans to eternal peace. At that time, he had leaped from an unremarkable prince to an expert of the god execution stage. His divine arts had established the path, and his battle prowess was astonishing. He was honored as the human emperor, and his future was boundless. After 20,000 years, his cultivation had stagnated. Without anyone to protect, he was immersed in sorrow and self-blame. Only when he met Qin Mu and Qin Mu unraveled the knot in his heart, did he walk out and become the human emperor that had led his people forward to seek hope. In a very short time he broke through to Jade Capital Realm. Coming into contact with Eternal Peace's reform would only speed up his cultivation. Gao Huaitong and First Ancestor Human Emperor fought fast, and in just a short moment, they had already reached the point where victory and defeat were decided. At this moment, Gao Huaitong's aura suddenly rose drastically, and he reached the Emperor's throne realm. First Ancestor Human Emperor's expression changed slightly, and he immediately retreated. Gao Huaitong didn't give chase. The reason he had raised his cultivation to the Emperor's throne realm was to make the other party back off. The life and death battle between the two of them was extremely dangerous, and he could see signs of his defeat. Even if he and First Ancestor Human Emperor got injured, his face wouldn't look too good. Thus, he raised his cultivation to Emperor's throne realm to make First Ancestor retreat in the face of difficulties, leaving him some face. Even so, he still couldn't maintain his face. Just as he was about to say something, First Ancestor ignored him and his gaze landed on Qin Mu's face. Qin Mu laughed and stood up. He waved his hand and said, "Nephew Gao, you may leave. I still have to deal with him personally." Gao Huaitong felt a wave of depression in his chest that was hard to release, and he thought to himself, "You sound like you're here to stand up for us. You're the one who brought them to block the door." The divine treasure realm dispersed, and everyone collapsed on the ground. Only Yan Qiling, Gao Huaitong, and First Ancestor were still fine, and they weren't severely injured. Qin Mu clapped his hands and said with a smile, "We should hold this kind of exchange frequently, once or twice. Everyone is very happy." Everyone got up with their faces covered in dirt, feeling resentful and speechless. Gao Huaitong coughed and said, Celestial Venerable is indeed a Celestial Venerable. We admire you so much that we prostrate ourselves in admiration. You are our senior uncle, so we can only listen to your teachings. We will pay a visit to Big Blackwood another day. Qin Mu said in delight. There aren't many people in the ancestral court, so we should have a good exchange and make it convenient for us to come and go. Nephew, please stay. I still have to bring them to visit the territories of the other Celestial Venerables. Gao Huitong agreed and watched them leave. After a moment he sighed and said, Truly a god, worthy of the title of Celestial Venerable. Junior sister, I heard Master talk about the reform of the primordial realm. Guess what Master said? Yin Qiling was astonished. She knew that he was Celestial Venerable Zhao's most valued disciple, and she knew what Celestial Venerable Zhao was thinking. She shook her head and said, I don't know. Master said that the reforms of the primordial realm will continue for 1,000,000 years without stopping. It will shake the foundations of the heavens, and shake the foundations of the celestial heavens. We will observe its power first. If we can destroy it, we will. If we can't, we will obey. Gao Huitong said meaningfully, defeat them to their advantage, resolve their disputes, share their light and dust, seize their aspirations and divide their power. In the future, even if the world is changed, we will still be the ones that can't be changed, and the ones that will rule this world will still be us. He smiled and said, Teacher Zhao's wisdom far surpasses that of Celestial Venerable Mu. You are the most outstanding disciple of Teacher Zhao, so make good use of it. You will have a chance to shine in the future. Celestial Venerable Mu wants to change the world. Qin Mu brought first ancestor Human Emperor, second ancestor, and the rest to visit the territories of the other Celestial Venerables, blocking the gate to gamble. This time, the past human emperors were much more well-behaved and no longer challenged him. Instead, they peacefully challenged the disciples of the various Celestial Venerables. This was a chance to make a name for himself, and also a chance to broaden his horizons. If he really fell out with the enemy in the future, it would be a good thing to know the enemy's methods earlier. On the way, Qin Mu was studying the runes of the Tai Chi. The runes of the Tai Chi were becoming more complete. He deduced and integrated these runes, and he gradually had a rough idea of how to break the unchanging substance divine art. When they finished visiting the territory of the 10 Celestial Venerables, it was already half a year later. Qin Mu sent first ancestor and the rest of the human emperors back to the Blackwood Mountain range and asked, Ancestral Masters, are you confident in guarding this place? Everyone nodded. First ancestor human emperor said, Initially, I didn't have much confidence. However, after seeing the capabilities of the disciples of the 10 Celestial Venerables, I have a plan. Even though the reputation of the 10 Celestial Venerables is great, their disciples are slightly inferior. Qin Mu said with a smile, That's good. I can't stay here for too long, so I'll leave the ancestral court to you guys. If you guys really can't resist, someone will naturally come out to help you. He then found Apothecary. In just a few months, Apothecary's cultivation had increased tremendously, and his cultivation realm had actually caught up to Village Chief, Mute, and the rest, cultivating to the Jade Pool realm. Qin Mu was astonished. Apothecary had always been the slowest among the 9 elders of disabled elderly village. His realm was even lower than Def's. After painstakingly cultivating to the God realm, it was hard for him to take another step forward. He didn't expect that in just a few months he would break through to the God realm, the true God realm, and reach the Jade Pool realm. I've already prepared the Celestial Palace for you. Apothecary took out a spirit pill and said with a smile, The path of medicine is in this spirit pill. Whether you can comprehend it will depend on your abilities. Qin Mu pinched the spirit pill and examined it carefully. He saw that the medicinal energy in the spirit pill had actually formed the abnormal site of a celestial palace. It was extremely sacred, and there were even Tao voices reciting from gods and devils. He was slightly worried and probed, Is there poison in this pill? Apothecary was full of smiles as he patted his shoulder and said leisurely, You stabbed me dozens of times the moment we entered the ancestral court. Muir, you've grown up and your wings have hardened. However, you were raised by me, so how could I poison your spirit pills? Qin Mu's expression changed slightly. As long as Apothecary said this, it meant that there was definitely poison in this spirit pill, and the toxicity was definitely fierce. Apothecary said with a kind expression, As apothecaries, poison is also medicine. Take it first and see the effect. Qin Mu wasn't in a hurry to consume the spirit pills. The vertical eye at the heart of his brows opened up and observed carefully. Apothecary smiled and didn't rush him, allowing him to study. Under the gaze of his third divine eye, all the secrets in this spirit pill were clearly reflected in his divine eye. What astonished him was that the medicinal energy in this spirit pill was integrated into one body. If he looked carefully, he actually couldn't see any composition of the medicinal energy. What was even stranger was that the medicinal energy in the spirit pills formed all kinds of runes of the Great Tao, and it was these runes that reflected the celestial palace phenomenon. Qin Mu had never heard of a celestial palace in a spirit pill. Furthermore, as the medicinal energy changed minutely, the rune patterns in the spirit pill also changed accordingly, making it hard to see through. Qin Mu followed Apothecary to cultivate and learn the path of medicine and poison, so he could be considered to have quite some achievements. However, ever since he cultivated 3 primordial spirit undying God consciousness and Anusrava creation mysterious technique, he had neglected to continue improving the path of medicine and poison. Apothecary's attainments in the path of medicine and poison had long reached the level of merging medicine and poison. The path of medicine and poison complemented each other. Qin Mu couldn't see how far he had reached. He couldn't even tell if the medicinal energy of this spirit pill was medicine or poison. Apothecary looked at him with a smile, and Qin Mu's expression wavered. He suddenly opened his mouth and swallowed the spirit pill. Apothecary laughed loudly. Qin Mu's expression changed drastically. When a spirit pill entered his stomach, he instantly felt an incomparably violent medicinal energy bursting forth. The moment the medicinal energy burst forth, he felt a lethal poison that could destroy everything instantly spread throughout his body. All of his vital qi melted like snow. Not only could his vital qi not withstand it, even his consciousness couldn't. His consciousness was melting. His corporeal body also started to become numb and lost all feeling. At the same time, his great Tao runes began to disintegrate, and the stars in his spirit embryo divine treasure dimmed. The star power became weaker. All of the ancient god apparitions in his divine treasures had lost their original divine power. The divine power had already been poisoned, and the halo behind the heads of the gods was covered in rust. It had lost its spirit, and it slowly stopped spinning. The ancient gods' bodies rotted and disintegrated, filling the air with a stench. Qin Mu was astonished and immediately planned to take out the Taiji Divine Stone to execute the Yinyang Taijutsu in his divine treasure. Unexpectedly, his body completely ignored his command and lost control of his muscles. Qin Mu felt like he was a pile of mud that could turn into pus at any moment. What he didn't dissolve was his spirit embryo primordial spirit, the Taiji diagram, and the complete celestial palace. Apothecary walked forward and examined him carefully. He exclaimed in admiration and praised, "Mu, you are indeed powerful. This pill of mine actually didn't completely dissolve your cultivation, and even allowed you to retain your primordial spirit. I thought I could dissolve all of your celestial palaces, and use your cultivation to reconstruct them, manifesting the marvelous and miraculous abilities of the medical Tao celestial palace." He frowned. His goal was to let the medical Tao celestial palace suppress the other celestial palaces so that Qin Mu could cast aside the darkness and seek the light, to cultivate the medical Tao with him. However, he didn't expect Qin Mu's attainments to be so strong that even the great poison pill he refined couldn't completely dissolve Qin Mu's celestial palace. "I should refine it more fiercely, but if it's too fierce, Mu will be poisoned to death." Apothecary went forward and helped Qin Mu to sit down. He said with a smile, "Mu, don't worry, I know what I'm doing. I won't act recklessly. My poison will transform the vital qi and consciousness in your body into pure true qi. With just a few tricks, you will be able to transform your true qi into the celestial palace of healing." Crap! Apothecary's expression changed drastically, and Qin Mu's eyes had already lost control. Only the third eye in the heart of his brows rolled its eyes as he thought to himself, "You have always used me as a test subject since I was young, which time wasn't bad?" Cold sweat broke out on Apothecary's forehead as he walked around Qin Mu. His sleeves fluttered in the wind, and all kinds of pill refinement techniques were superb, dazzling the eyes. Pill refinement techniques were also divine arts. In terms of attainments in this aspect, no one would dare to claim to be number one if apothecary was number two. Back in disabled elderly village chief had once said that if apothecary could use his pill refinement techniques in battle, his paths, skills, and divine arts would improve greatly. If combined with his vigorous cultivation, apothecary could be ranked among the strong practitioners in the world. However, apothecary didn't care much about cultivation and didn't research paths, skills, and divine arts. He would always raise some poisonous insects and plant some herbs, which resulted in him becoming in existence with the lowest cultivation in disabled elderly village. At this moment, Qin Mu's situation was critical. The medicinal energy of the spirit pills that apothecary had refined was too strong. His goal was to dissolve Qin Mu's cultivation and refine him into a celestial palace of medicine. This was equivalent to helping Qin Mu enter the path with medicine through his hands. Even though he didn't like to fight fiercely, he still had pride in his heart. He wanted to suppress village chief, mute, and the rest, but he didn't expect that not only did he fail to suppress the other complete celestial palaces, he couldn't even control the medicinal energy of the spirit pills. Apothecary's footsteps were like flying as he circled around Qin Mu. His pill refinement technique was ever-changing and becoming faster. His forehead was dripping with sweat, and before he even landed, he had already transformed into white steam. He treated Qin Mu as a pill furnace, and the medicinal energy in Qin Mu's body as herbs. He wanted to refine Qin Mu into a spirit pill. Now, he regretted not cultivating diligently to raise his cultivation. Qin Mu himself was too strong. Using Qin Mu as a pill furnace to execute this human-shaped pill furnace required dense magic power. The medicinal energy in Qin Mu's body was too strong, so executing it to evolve into the celestial palace of healing was much more difficult. He was gasping for breath, and his vital qi was depleting faster. If he couldn't raise his vital qi at any time, all his efforts would be for naught. His face was like a red cloth that had just been fished out from a vat of dye. He tried his best to mobilize his cultivation in an attempt to transform the pure true essence in Qin Mu's body into the celestial palace of healing. As long as the celestial palace of the medical path was fixed, the rules of the medical path contained within it could save Qin Mu's life. However, even if he used all his strength and all his cultivation, he still couldn't turn the true essence in Qin Mu's body into the celestial palace of healing. Apothecary spat out a mouthful of fresh blood. He felt that his vital qi had been exhausted, but Qin Mu's celestial palace of healing was only half constructed. I will risk my life to not let anything happen to Muir. Apothecary's temper flared up, and he suddenly reversed his technique, burning his qi and blood to continue executing all kinds of pill refinement techniques to smack Qin Mu, helping Qin Mu raise this human-shaped pill furnace to refine the medicinal energy. At this moment, Qin Mu suddenly raised his hand and waved it, blocking his pill refinement technique. He sneered and said, "Grandpa Apothecary, you screwed up, didn't you? I knew you would mess up. Every time you refine new pills, you either lack this or that." Apothecary was stunned. He could acutely sense that Qin Mu's celestial palace of healing was actually forming on its own. It was Qin Mu's spirit embryo primordial spirit, executing the other celestial palaces, and the Yin-Yang Taijutsu to refine the remaining medicinal energy, and transform the primordial qi into the celestial palace of healing. Apothecary spewed out another mouthful of blood, and Qin Mu immediately raised his hand to tap on it to seal the qi and blood flowing in reverse in his body. He helped him to sit down and said with a smile, "Grandpa Apothecary, now you know the disadvantage of having no cultivation, right?" Apothecary trembled as he raised his finger to point at him. Qin Mu pressed down his hand and said earnestly, "You learn from your mistakes. If I didn't save some of my cultivation for emergencies, wouldn't you be exhausted to death?" Apothecary said with a trembling voice, "You can clearly refine the medicinal energy yourself, yet you still made me so tired that I vomited blood. Grandpa Apothecary often scammed me in the past, so I followed his example." Qin Mu quickly took out some spirit herbs and prepared them to refine spirit pills to nourish his vital qi and blood. He said with a smile, "If I didn't scare you this time, you would have suffered sooner or later. Now that you know your mistake, you will work hard to cultivate in the future, and strive to be as strong as me." You're unfilial. Just as Apothecary said that, Qin Mu stuffed a spirit pill into his mouth and said angrily, I'm not eating. Qin Mu stretched out a finger and gently slit his throat. Apothecary couldn't help swallowing the spirit pill. Qin Mu's fingers danced like the wind and tapped repeatedly on his chest to help him refine the medicinal energy. Don't throw a childish tantrum. Even though I was the one who schemed against you, what if you don't have enough power to dissolve the medicinal energy to save me when you meet a situation where I'm sure to die in the future? Of course, I'm so strong so I definitely won't meet that kind of situation, but what about Village Chief? He's not as strong as me. He knew that Apothecary had the best relationship with Village Chief, so he guided him patiently. If Village Chief is seriously injured and is about to die, you have the medicine to save him, but you don't have enough magic power to catalyze the medicinal energy. Wouldn't you want to see him die in front of you? Apothecary regained some of his spirit and panted heavily. You cursed Village Chief, you are unfilial. Village Chief is so sad. Qin Mu mobilized his cultivation and refined the excess medicinal energy in his body. He said with a smile, I'm just making an analogy, I'm not cursing him. Don't talk nonsense. The Village Chief picked you. Qin Mu hurriedly got up and said, I still have things to do and need to leave the ancestral court for a period of time. Grandpa Apothecary, you can stay here to slowly treat your injuries and work hard to cultivate and raise your abilities. I'll be leaving first. He immediately left and was overjoyed. There's another celestial palace of medicine. I'm getting closer to the Jade Pool realm. Grandpa Apothecary will also work hard to cultivate and raise his cultivation. Yes, among the 9 elders of disabled elderly village, only Grandpa Cripple and Old Ma are disappointing. How should I train them? He was full of smiles as he called the dragon Qilin and Yenner over. He instructed them, I plan to pluck that ancient god egg that will grant my request and leave behind the precious treasure of the 28 heavens. You are Dragon Mountain Sanren, the #1 heavenly master in the world, and you are also the master of the Void Beast Mother. You control the Void Beast in the ancestral court. If you guys stay here, you can ensure the safety of this precious land. The dragon Qilin immediately asked, Cult Master, when are you coming back? Qin Mu thought about it and said, if it's fast, 1 year. If it's late, 3 to 5 years. The dragon Qilin was anxious. The title of Dragon Mountain Sanren was fake. Even though Blind was a formation master, he still lacked confidence. It's easy to raise Cult Master, but it's hard to raise Old Master Blind. Old Master Blind is shrewd. He felt danger descending, and his human rearing scripture would probably undergo a huge test. Qin Mu then found Blind and Mute and entrusted them with the task of refining the Glassy Sky Pagoda again. Mute smiled and said, North Deity is wasting a god's gift by refining this treasure into a mess. I've long disliked it and will definitely refine it. Don't worry. Qin Mu flew up, plucked the ancient god egg from the Glassy Sky Pagoda, and placed it in the Qin word land. He thought to himself, I have mostly deciphered the Tao language of Tai Shi. Now I can deduce the Tao language of this ancient god egg through the Tao language of Tai Shi. I will know what these 2 ancient gods are discussing. He walked out and raised his head to see that it was already dark. Qin Mu took out his lantern and was about to leave when the ground suddenly shook. Outside the 100,000 Black Mountains was a terrifying sight of the universe collapsing and being destroyed. In the 100,000 Black Mountains, the gods of eternal peace looked outside in fear. The dragon Qilin's voice came from afar. Everyone, don't panic. This is only the scene of the previous universe being destroyed. There are no changes to the ancestral court. Qin Mu heard this and let out a sigh of relief. He carried the lantern and walked out of the 100,000 Black Mountains, leaving the area protected by the Glassy Sky Pagoda. The moment he stepped out of the Black Mountain, his hair stood on end, and a great fear arose in his heart. He heard the Tao of this universe wailing and crumbling. The gods of this world were crying. This was definitely not an illusion. He had truly stepped into the era when the previous universe was destroyed. In front of his eyes was the terrifying sight of the entire universe being destroyed, and all matter returning to energy. In front of this terrifying power, all paths, skills, and gods were completely useless. Even Qin Mu could feel his great Tao crumbling and disintegrating into energy. His corporeal body was useless in front of this terrifying destructive wave. His primordial spirit was also tearing apart. He turned his head back and saw an incomparably ancient tree towering in the destruction of the universe. It was lush and verdant with thousands of multicolored lights swirling around it. This is the main body of the big black tree. He wanted to return to the divine tree, but when he raised his leg, his feet had already turned into ashes. Qin revealed a look of terror. Suddenly, a flash of inspiration hit him, and he hurriedly took out the ancient god egg that he had requested for. That ancient god egg immediately sensed the abnormality in front of him, and it seemed to know that a disaster was imminent. Countless magnificent great Tao runes flew out from the egg to block the terrifying fluctuations of the universe's destruction. Qin immediately felt the pressure lighten, and he executed Overlord Body 3 elixir technique. His feet grew rapidly, and he raised the ancient god egg high into the air, rushing towards the divine tree. A resonant Tao voice came from the ancient god egg. The Tao voice rang out to block the impact of the apocalypse. The human and the egg rushed towards the divine tree like two streams of light. The ancient god egg was furious. Even though it knew it was Qin who had brought him into this dangerous situation, it had no choice but to rely on him. The destructive energy of the universe became more terrifying. Qin seemed to be very close to the divine tree, but he was actually very far away. The incomparably terrifying energy assaulted him, causing the ancient god egg to emit cracking sounds. The ancient god egg could be crushed at any moment. Qin gave a furious roar and poured all his strength into his feet. He rushed forward frantically and his speed rose to an unprecedented extreme. He felt that space didn't exist. In the extreme speed there was no space or time. Finally, he rushed to the bottom of the divine tree. At that moment, a destructive energy wave came over and crushed the safe zone that the ancient god egg was supporting. Cracking sounds rang out, and pieces of shattered eggshells flew out in all directions, even slicing Qin cheek. He used the last of his strength to rush to the bottom of the tree, raising a huge piece of eggshell high up with both hands. Divine light rushed into the sky from the eggshell, and the divine tree was extremely colorful. Just as he rushed to the bottom of the tree, the world suddenly turned dark, as if he had stepped from one universe to another. Qin let out a sigh of relief, knowing that he had returned to the Black Mountain. His legs went limp, and he stumbled forward several hundred miles before stopping. Suddenly, he felt his hands becoming lighter, and he hurriedly raised his head to take a look. He saw that the half of the eggshell was empty, and only some egg liquid was left. The ancient god in the egg had already vanished. Qin held the huge eggshell in liquid, and he was astonished. He hurriedly looked around, but he couldn't see the figure of the ancient god. Did this ancient god stay in the previous universe, or did he escape while I was escaping? Qin composed himself and felt slightly uneasy. If that ancient god had stayed in the previous universe, he would have died along with that universe. If he escaped back with her, he would definitely bear a grudge against her for almost taking his life with him. Furthermore, he was forced to come into being before he even matured. No matter if it was in terms of cultivation or abilities, he was much inferior to a mature body. This grudge was huge. Qin was worried. He was trying so hard to comprehend the great Tao runes of Tai Shi's egg. Besides saving Celestial Venerable Ling and Wei Suifeng, he also wanted to know what the ancient god and Tai Shi were talking about. Now, even though he had deciphered the runes of the great Tao of Tai Shi, the ancient god in the egg had escaped and created such a huge grudge. It was likely that there would be trouble in the future. I hope he dies in the previous universe. And this egg liquid is so fragrant. Qin index finger suddenly twitched as he picked up the huge eggshell and carefully tasted it. How fragrant! No wonder this ancient god isn't willing to come out of the eggshell. Crap, there's too much of this one, I can't refine it. On the second day, the sky gradually brightened, and everything outside the 100,000 Black Mountains was calm and peaceful. The apocalyptic terror from last night had vanished, and the ancestral court was still the same as before. Qin held onto his stomach and frowned. He had drunk a mouthful of egg liquid last night, and his stomach felt heavy and uncomfortable. At times, there seemed to be a celestial river surging violently in his stomach. At other times there seemed to be huge beasts overturning the rivers and seas. At other times it was incomparably heavy as though there were 100 Mount Meru in it. At other times, it was as though there was a sun hidden in it, roasting his organs until they were charred. That mouthful of egg liquid seemed to be able to transform into countless forms in his body, making it impossible to digest. He could feel that the egg liquid contained an extremely abundant amount of energy. However, not only was he unable to refine it, it had become his burden instead. I can't eat anything in the future. This egg liquid is even more poisonous than Grandpa Apothecary's spirit pills, but it's really fragrant. Cold sweat broke out on Qin Mu's forehead. Just as he was about to walk out of the ancestral court, he suddenly saw a mountain peak split open. A young and beautiful woman carrying a bucket walked over to the mountain peak. Qin Mu was slightly stunned and greeted, "Dao brother Tai Yi." The woman was none other than Tai Yi. When she saw him, she couldn't help but shake her head and say, "Dao friend, you went to the previous universe last night. Yet you are also daring enough to step out of the Black Mountain after dark. Tai Su also came out early because of you. The karma between you and her isn't small." Qin Mu endured the intense pain in his stomach and asked, "Does Dao brother know where she is hiding?" The woman shook her head. "I know, but I can't tell you that you have ill intentions."
Qin Mu frowned.
The woman said with a smile, "You ate her egg liquid? That's her thing to achieve the path, so the karma is even deeper." Qin Mu asked humbly, "How do we resolve this grudge?" "I can't." The woman shook her head. She had her doubts about the birth of Taichu and was dug out by the masters of creation, so she doesn't trust anyone. She's also ambitious, so it's only a matter of time before she clashes with you. Celestial Venerable Mu, I can teach you how to dissolve the egg liquid. Qin Mu's heart stirred slightly. The woman continued, "The Tai Su is born in the Tai Su mine. By absorbing the power of the Tai Su origin stone, she can refine the egg liquid and master the great Tao of Tai Su. You can use the Tai Su divine stone to dissolve the energy in the egg liquid." Qin Mu bowed to express his thanks, and the woman said with a smile, "I'm only giving you pointers for the sake of the future. I also took advantage of you. Even if I don't tell you, you will soon know the use of the Great Simplicity divine stone." After she said that, she carried the bucket to the cracked Black Mountain. The dragon Qilin and Yenner had already arrived. When they saw that Qin Mu was still in the 100,000 Black Mountains, the dragon Qilin hurried over. Qin Mu instructed, "Warn everyone not to go out at night, or else you will definitely die. Remember." The dragon Qilin jumped in shock and cried out, "Cult Master, you went out at night?" Qin Mu blushed slightly and said, "Stop asking." The dragon Qilin watched him leave and thought to himself, "I have already told everyone that I can't go out at night. Even that mischievous fellow in Zhang Yunjian doesn't dare to go out. Only Cult Master, this incomparably curious fellow, still dares to go out after seeing the great terror of the destruction of the universe. The Tai Su mine should be the mine of the Xian clan, Celestial Venerable Gong's territory." Qin Mu muttered to himself. He took out the Tao Su divine stone that Celestial Venerable Gong had given him and played with it. This divine stone was a cube, but it was changing all the time. The inside wasn't the inside, the outside wasn't the outside, and the difference between the inside and outside was blurred. When he had first entered the ancestral court, Qin Mu had stabbed the head of the void beast with the glassy sky pagoda. The first place the void beast had gone to was the Tai Su mine. In other words, this divine stone should be called the Tai Su divine stone, while the divine egg in the glassy sky pagoda should be called the Tai Su divine egg. The goal of the Tai Su divine egg was the Tai Su mine. Only by obtaining the divine stones and raw stones in the mine would she be able to refine the egg liquid and successfully come into being. Celestial Venerable Gong promised me that she would give me 10% of the Tai Su divine stones. I originally promised her to explore the mystery of the Tai Su divine stone, but after drinking a mouthful of egg liquid, I'm afraid I won't be able to research the uses of the Tai Su divine stone. He gripped the divine stone tightly and tried to absorb the power of the divine stone. Unexpectedly, the divine stone statue seemed to have no substance and actually tunneled into his hand, following his arm to his stomach. Qin Mu was astonished. In his stomach, the egg liquid was still changing. However, when the Tai Su divine stone came there, a marvelous sight happened. The egg liquid was ever changing, and the Tai Su divine stone was also transforming. Every time these two things changed, Qin Mu felt an incomparably vast and profound Tao rune ring out from the bottom of his heart. A wave of pure power surged over, reaching all parts of his body, his divine treasures, and his celestial palaces. Not only that, his primordial spirit suddenly transformed, sometimes solidifying into corporeal form, and sometimes becoming nothingness. The Tai Su divine stone was slowly shrinking, and the liquid in the egg was also decreasing. Gradually, Qin Mu had a slight understanding of Tai Su's Tao. Tai Su, the beginning of quality, was the process of energy transforming into matter, from intangible to solid. Energy transformed into tangible substances, which was why she could fulfill any request. Because of what people sought from the Tai Su divine egg is a change in substance, the Tai Su divine egg could fulfill any request. This was different from the Tai Shi Tao. Qin Mu studied the egg of Tai Shi. Tai Shi had quite a high attainment in the Tao of Tai Shi. The Tao of Tai Shi was a Tao that was formed from energy and had no substance. Thus, it could solve celestial venerable Ling's unchanging substance divine art. The Tao of Tai Chu should be the Kanate Qi, which only has energy and no substance. The Kanate Qi is the general outline of all the Kanate great Taos, so when Tai Chu was born, he was the leader of all the ancient gods. It's natural for him to become the ancient celestial emperor. However, he was corrupted by the Grand Emperor and didn't reach a perfect state. Qin Mu pondered for a moment. The path of Taiji is the principle of yin and yang transforming into all things. Therefore, in the Taiji mind, creatures and substances can transform into all kinds of forms. Vegetation can transform into behemoths, and people can transform into mountain rocks. There are no normal changes to the form, and it's mysterious and marvelous. Logically speaking, there shouldn't be any difference between the ancient gods of these four minds. As long as they are mature and come into being, they will be the leader of all Tao, the supreme being of all gods. Tai Yi is even higher. Tai Yi has no form, no shape, no quality, no air, and can be transformed into all things. It can appear in any period of history, and can become anyone. He is also the first perfect ancient god of the ancient mind. His realm is already hard to understand. The Tai Su divine stone had already been used up, but only 1/10 of the egg liquid in Qin Mu's stomach had been used up. This made him frown. In that case, I'll leave the ancestral court and make a trip to celestial venerable Gong's mine to collect 1/10 of the great simplicity divine stone. He changed his direction and walked towards the Tai Su mine. In the 100,000 Black Mountains, the woman Tai Yi, the dragon Qilan, and Yenna repaired the cracked black mountain before carrying the water bucket and leaving. Suddenly, the woman stopped in her tracks and smiled.
Fellow Taoist tai sunnuntai, welcome.
As soon as she finished speaking, a tall and slender woman with a cold face walked out from the shadow of the black mountain. The light behind her was like a halo, and her appearance changed, making it hard to see through her. It was just that the brilliance of her great Tao wasn't complete. It was very incomplete. There was one piece missing here and another piece missing there. The goddess frowned slightly and said, "My name is Tai Su. People will call you that in the future." The woman smiled easily. "The reason why I transformed into a woman's body is to see you. As a woman, it might be easier for me to speak." Goddess Tai Su paid no attention to this and said, "Tao brother is too considerate. Tao brother, this celestial venerable Mu has done evil, so why are you still tolerating him? How overbearing is what he has done? He destroyed my divine egg, ruined my cultivation, and stole my primordial liquid. This grudge is completely different. We came from the same source, so you should help me." The woman smiled too easily and said, "Tao friend, we are both natural gods, so we are Tao ourselves. With the heart of the mortal world, our cultivation will be low. Why are you so calculative with him?" Tai Su shook his head and said, "You have achieved the Tao. That's why you are so open-minded and transcendent. However, my chance to achieve the Tao has been broken, so I definitely won't tolerate him. We, the gods, are destined to be the rulers of heaven and earth, the rulers of the universe. Look at Tao friend Tai Chu, how glorious is he? How remarkable is he? If he has ambition, he must execute it. If he has hatred, he must wash it with blood. Otherwise, what's the point of having such abilities?" The woman frowned. "You are too involved in the world, and you are getting further away from the path. Taoist Tai Su, your mortal heart is too heavy. I'm afraid it will be a huge obstacle to you. Taisu sneered and said, Dao brother, I'm inferior to your abilities in divine arts, but don't stop me. I will definitely take revenge. The woman was too easy to persuade. You and Taishu discussed in secret how to seize the world, how to rule the worlds and eradicate your enemies. It's because of this reason that you have come to this situation today. Why continue to be wrong? Taisu's expression changed slightly, and he said angrily, the place I discussed with Taishu was in the eyes of that brat. Even he didn't know about it, yet you actually knew about it. This shows that your divine art is unfathomable. However, since you know about this, you should also know about my calamity and how I had no choice but to come out early. Why didn't you stop him earlier? Dao brother, you are too biased. She laughed from extreme anger and flicked her sleeves. Today I will kill everyone in this black mountain. I will first wipe out the hatred in my heart before killing my way back to my mine and killing everyone there. Do you want to stop me? The woman put down the small metal bucket easily and looked down. Besides the universe tree, I can't tolerate your impudence. I can see everything in the past and the future, but I can't see it here. This is the source of the cataclysm. If you dare to be violent here and destroy this place, I have no choice but to stop you. Taisu had a fierce look in his eyes and was about to make a move when the woman suddenly flicked her finger. Taisu instantly felt the world spinning as she flew out of the 100,000 black mountains and landed somewhere. The woman sighed and picked up the water bucket to leave. It's hard to achieve the Dao if you are too infatuated. Dao friend is hard to find, yet I can't defend myself. Taisu fell down and felt the world spinning around him. She only recovered after a moment, and her anger overflowed into the sky. She said hatefully, as expected of a biased scoundrel, Fine, I'll take back the mine first and then kill that brat to take revenge. She rushed towards the new Exine clan's mine with murderous intent. When she reached Celestial Venerable Gong's territory, her expression changed slightly when she looked from afar. She saw a divine weapon hanging high above the Taisu mine, suppressing everything. That divine weapon was like a conical body, changing formlessly and continuously splitting apart. Sometimes it would gather together and stand upright there. The tip of the conical body was pointed downwards, and it was extremely terrifying. My current strength isn't enough, so I'm afraid I won't be able to kill my way in. That treasure is powerful, and if I try to force my way in, I'll only be harmed by it. Taisu hesitated for a moment before turning around to leave. In that case, let's go find that Dao friend in the Taiji mine. That Dao friend will guide this brat to the roots of the universe tree. If he wants to harm him, he will definitely cooperate with me. As soon as Taisu left, Qinmu immediately left Celestial Venerable Gong's territory. He smiled at an empress who was sending him off. Sihua, hold on. The empress was the disciple of Celestial Venerable Gong, and her name was Nian Sihua. She said, Celestial Venerable Mu, my master has ordered me to be respectful to you. Even if Celestial Venerable Mu leads the human emperors of Hall of Human Emperors to block the gate, I will still welcome you warmly and send you off. Qinmu laughed loudly and said, Thank you for your hospitality. Please stay. After saying that, he floated away. Nian Sihua watched him leave and frowned slightly. He said in a low voice, I really don't know what master is thinking. He actually gave him 1/10 of the divine stone that he had painstakingly dug out. This Celestial Venerable Mu is a playboy and doesn't have any real talent. One look and I can tell he's a frivolous person. He's the same kind of person as Son of Heaven Yin. Master, don't be deceived by him. Qinmu obtained 8 Taisu divine stones from Nian Sihua and was satisfied. After refining these 8 pieces of consciousness, I should be able to refine the egg liquid I drank. At most, there will be some left, but there's nothing to worry about. He took out a divine stone of Taisu and clenched his fist gently. The divine stone of Taisu vanished and reappeared in his stomach, corresponding to the stubborn egg liquid. Qinmu felt the Dao runes of the Taisu Dao and felt his cultivation rising. He also understood all kinds of great Dao runes of the Taisu realm, which made him feel quite comfortable. I've studied the egg of Taishu for such a long time, and only then did I manage to research the runes of Taishu. However, there must be an even deeper level of great Dao runes in the runes of Taishu. Just by refining the egg liquid, I can understand so many great Dao runes of the Taisu realm. If I can break open the egg of Taisher and extract the Taisher divine stone to refine the Taisher egg liquid, my cultivation will definitely be twice as fast. He couldn't help but think about it and shook his head. The egg of Taisher was incomparably hard, and even a peak emperor's throne like Wei Suifeng couldn't split it apart. Instead, 3 of his fingers were shattered. Qin Mu naturally couldn't either. On the other hand, the Taisu egg had used the terrifying power brought about by the destruction of the previous universe to shatter the egg. Qin Mu absolutely didn't want to experience such a terrifying situation again. He carried Celestial Venerable Yu's lantern and walked towards the crack in the sky above the ancestral court, passing through the seal he had left behind. Qin Mu examined the spirit energy mutual shift bridge he had left outside the ancestral court and observed it carefully. He sneered and said, "This bridge has been destroyed 8 times. Celestial Venerable Hong, Celestial Venerable Shao, and Celestial Venerable Gong probably won't destroy my bridge. In that case, the other Celestial Venerables will be the ones to make a move. The 8th time should be that little girl Yun Chuxiu." He thought of Yun Chuxiu and couldn't help but think of the Patriarch Creation Palace Master, Shi Chilua, the burly man with a full beard. Qin Mu shook his head and boarded the Spirit Energy Mutual Shift Bridge. This Spirit Energy Mutual Shift Bridge connected Eternal Peace, and when he walked out of it, he was already near Eternal Peace's capital city. Qin Mu let out a sigh of relief and walked into the capital city. He met Ling Yuxiu and talked about his experience in the ancestral court. Ling Yuxiu said, "Stay in the palace for a few days, it won't be too late to leave after refining that weird egg liquid." Qin Mu acknowledged and stayed temporarily in the palace. Ling Yuxiu came to find him after settling the affairs of the court, but she saw Qin Mu sitting in the pavilion in the imperial garden in a daze. Ling Yuxiu sat down beside him and waved her hand to dismiss the palace maids. She asked with a smile, "What is Imperial Preceptor thinking about?" "I'm thinking about the battle in the Great Void." Qin Mu pondered and said, "Even though the land of the Great Void is dangerous, it's hard to defend against the attacks of the celestial heavens. The celestial heavens are too strong, so it's only a matter of time before they conquer the land of the Great Void. Now that the Void Beast is under the control of the Dragon Qilin, should I let the Dragon Qilin bring the Void Beast to the Great Void for battle?" Ling Yuxiu thought about it and said, "If the Grand Emperor appears in the Great Void, can the Dragon Qilin protect the Mother Beast? I'm also thinking about this problem." The 2 of them sat in the pavilion and admired the scenery. Neither of them spoke, cherishing this rare piece. Qin Mu got up and took off his shoes. He sat beside the pavilion and placed his feet in the water. Ling Yuxiu said with a smile, "You still have the temper of a child, be careful not to stink your feet and suffocate my fish to death." Qin Mu patted the empty space beside him and smiled. "Come and sit with me." Ling Yuxiu shook her head. "I'm the emperor now, how can I be like you? There's no one nearby." Ling Yuxiu hesitated for a moment and looked around. Only then did she take off her boots and sit beside him. She carefully placed her feet into the water and let out a sigh of relief. "Freedom. I haven't taken off my shoes in front of people for many years."
Qin Mu laughed loudly.
Ling Yuxiu suddenly leaned on his shoulder. There were 2 people and 4 legs slapping the water surface. After a while, Ling Yuxiu leaned on his shoulder and fell asleep. Qin Mu didn't move and watched her sleep soundly. When Ling Yuxiu woke up, the lanterns were already lit. She hurriedly jumped up and grumbled, "Why didn't you wake me up?" Qin Mu said with a smile, "I saw that you were too tired, so I didn't wake you up. There were still some palace maids that came here and were chased back by me." Ling Yuxiu immediately put on her shoes and said, "They are here to urge me to go to the imperial study. I haven't approved the memorials yet, so I have to go and do it." Qin Mu got up and put on his shoes. "I'll go with you." Ling Yuxiu shook her head. "If those people see you helping me to approve memorials, they will report to the imperial court that you are in charge of politics and want to kill you." Qin Mu couldn't help laughing. "There's still contrarians? There are many. I'll go with you. As imperial preceptor, I haven't dealt with the politics of the empire for over 10 years. If those people like to talk, let them talk. At most you can just kill their heads and secretly send them to the place. Do you have a small notebook?" "Of course. Ling family's tradition can't be lost." The 2 of them were reading memorials in the imperial study. and before they knew it, the sky had already turned bright. A hen dragon cried out, and the other hen dragons followed suit. Ling Yuxiu yawned and said in a hurry, "I'll go wash my face first and eat something. I'm about to go to court. If I go late, I'll be in a heated argument again." Qin Mu also stood up and wanted to hug her, but he saw the palace maids carrying the items to wash up. He could only endure it and said, "Your Majesty, I have already refined the divine stone and egg liquid. It's time to settle my matters." Ling Yuxiu washed her face in the basin and raised her head with a smile. "Go do what you need to do, go ahead. I'm here." Qin Mu felt warm in his heart and said gently, "Your Majesty, take care of your body." Ling Yuxiu's heart was also warm, and she said gently, "Imperial preceptor is too much, you can't work too hard." Qin Mu bowed and left the imperial study. He raised his head to look at the white spewing from the east. He tidied his clothes, and while the sky was still dark, he carried Celestial Venerable Yu's lantern and headed towards the surging river. "Big senior brother, the soldiers on the ghost ship, I promise to free you from the unchanging divine art. Now I can finally do it." When the sun rose, he had already reached surging river. Qin Mu stood on the river surface and saw a red sun leaping out from the east. The river water rippled, and when it was shone on by the rising red sun, it was like thousands of big red fish jumping on the water surface. He put away the lantern and took out Celestial Venerable Ling's peachwood hairpin. With a gentle stroke, a ghost ship appeared under the river surface. Its mast broke through the water surface and slid rapidly under the water. The ghost ship leaped out of the water surface, and the instant it broke through the surface of surging river, the river water flowed like jade, welcoming the light of the rising sun. Rainbow after rainbow hung above the ghost ship. The ghost ship sailed through the wind and waves towards Qin Mu. Qin Mu rose into the air and landed on the deck of the ghost ship. "Senior brother."
Qin Mu bowed.
"Junior brother." Emperor of Endless Clouds Wei Suifeng returned the greeting. When he got up, there were tens of thousands of black coffins behind him. The black coffins stood quietly on the ghost ship, and the black coffins opened up one after another. Inside, the god and devil soldiers of the feathered forest guards walked out. Qin Mu revealed a smile and said loudly, "I'm here today to fulfill my promise and free everyone from the state of unchanging substance." Wei Suifeng was excited, and so were the soldiers on the ghost ship, but none of them spoke. Suddenly, the phoenix flapped its wings and flew over. With a loud bang, a stone coffin landed on the ground. Wei Suifeng frowned slightly. That phoenix was Feng Qiuyun, the subordinate of Mother Earth, God Qiuyun. In the coffin was the ancient corpse of High Emperor, which had also been assimilated by the ghost ship. At the same time, a hen dragon with a huge physique also popped its head out from the back of the palace on the ship, looking around excitedly. It was Lin Xiao, an expert under Mistress Yuemu. Other than that, the crazy King Dragon Count of Dragon Count Country had also quietened down. Meanwhile, in the hall that was suppressing Celestial Empress corpse and Ju Wuchen, the 8 dragon counts also seemed to have heard these words and slowly turned their heads. Wei Suifeng turned back to take a glance and said indifferently, "There are so many demons and monsters on this ship. I'm afraid it won't be peaceful for Junior Brother to solve the ghost ship."
Qin Mu sighed ruefully.
"That's right. There are many demons and monsters on this ship, but they aren't strong. Celestial Venerable Ling sealed the Celestial River herself and assimilated with it. The demons and monsters there are truly terrifying. Senior brother, can we begin?" Wei Suifeng hesitated for a moment before nodding. Feng Qiuyun was extremely excited. Flames blazed in the eyes of the petrified dragon Count Wang Long, ready to escape at any moment. Qin Mu focused his mind and executed the Tao of Tai Shi. Great Tao runes flowed out from the heart of his brows, gradually increasing in number. Everyone could only hear the calls of gods and all living beings chanting the same name. That was the name of the Grand Prime. This was the Tao voice of the Tao of Tai Shi, and it was very strange. When Wei Suifeng tried to chop the ancient god egg, this Tao voice had exploded before. Wei Suifeng couldn't hide his excitement. "Looks like Junior Brother found the letter I left for him, Celestial Venerable Ling." He completely analyzed Celestial Venerable Ling's unchanging divine art, and broke through the great Tao contained in the egg from the unchanging divine art. He's saved. He knew how difficult it was to comprehend Celestial Venerable Ling's unchanging divine art. He had received Celestial Venerable Ling's letter for a long time and studied it for a long time, but he still couldn't solve it. The 10 Celestial Venerables of the Celestial Heavens had received Celestial Venerable Ling's letter for an even longer time, so they didn't gain anything. Qin Mu solved the marvel of Celestial Venerable Ling's letter in a short time. Such talent was hard to find in the world. It was even more difficult to solve the great Tao of Taishe contained in the egg. The difficulty was even higher than Celestial Venerable Ling's letter. He didn't know that Qin Mu was able to comprehend Celestial Venerable Ling's letter not entirely because of his own intelligence. If it wasn't for old Buddha's Boundless Calamity Sutra, even if he could solve the marvel of the letter, he would still need hundreds of thousands of years. In terms of intelligence, Qin Mu wasn't a top-notch figure. He was only good at using all kinds of techniques and divine arts to improve himself. There were more runes of the great Tao of Taishe, and the different runes of the great Tao arranged themselves and began to suppress the ghost ship. Everyone and everything on the ghost ship was assimilated into an unchanging substance, neither increasing nor decreasing. Now Wei Suifeng and the rest felt that the unchanging substance was gradually changing. At this moment, Qin Mu felt something in his heart. He felt a few forces invading this place silently from the unseen world. It was like the wind blowing on the river making him shiver. He looked at Wei Suifeng and Wei Suifeng also noticed it. He revealed a puzzled expression. Both of them were astonished. Someone had targeted the ghost ship. There were too many secrets buried in the ghost ship. Not only was there the corporeal body of the Celestial Empress, but there was also Zhu Wuqian. The people who were most concerned about this were none other than Celestial Empress, Mistress Yuanmu, Celestial Venerable Hao, Celestial Venerable Shao, and the other people who had participated in that disgraceful history. The demons and monsters on the ghost ship weren't much, but the ones that came were the big shots. Qin Mu made a prompt decision and dispersed Taishe's divine art. He said solemnly, "Senior brother, 2 chances." Wei Suifeng shuddered and understood. The 2 chances that Qin Mu had mentioned were 2 chances to return to the past. There was only one way to avoid these ancient existences, and that was to break Celestial Venerable Ling's divine art. Only by returning to the past would these Celestial Venerables be wary of taking action, and not dare to return to the past with them. If they returned to the past, they would disappear. Wei Suifeng's aura trembled, and he executed the divine art of the ghost ship. The ghost ship suddenly set sail, and the fog on the river surface gradually rose, becoming thicker. The ghost ship sailed through the fog. Suddenly, lightning flashed and thunder rumbled in the fog as it struck randomly outside the ship. Qin Mu and Wei Suifeng's expressions changed slightly. The ghost ship had entered the fog, and it wasn't easy for the people and things on the ghost ship to start flowing back. However, the terrifying existence that had followed them didn't give up, and actually took the chance to follow them. They didn't board the ship and followed the fog in. Wei Suifeng's heart sank. He had already assimilated with the ghost ship, becoming one with it. No matter who boarded the ship, he could easily sense them. The people that had entered the fog were afraid of Celestial Venerable Ling's divine art, afraid that they would be assimilated. Thus, they didn't dare to step onto the ghost ship. However, the person who had entered the fog was too strong. When they entered the fog, their own power actually started to change the composition of the fog. Qin Mu and Wei Suifeng didn't know how many people had entered the fog. However, the magic power of the intruder wasn't as simple as changing the structure of the fog. The true goal of the intruder was to prevent the ghost ship from passing through, and pull them back to reality. The divine art of the ghost ship wasn't a perfect unchanging divine art, executed by Celestial Venerable Ling. Instead, it was created by Celestial Venerable Ling Qin Mu and Wei Suifeng worked together to complete this divine art. Of course, their comprehension back then was limited, so they couldn't perfectly recreate Celestial Venerable Ling's unchanging divine art. Now that there was a flaw in this divine art, the person would have a chance to pull the ghost ship back to reality. Junior brother, you solved the unchanging divine art. I'll execute it. Wei Suifeng shouted. Qin Mu's heart stirred slightly. What would happen if he executed unchanging divine art and Taishe's divine art at the same time? He didn't dare to imagine. Because the complete unchanging divine art was created by Celestial Venerable Ling, she had only used it once. The divine art of Tai Shi was a divine art that Qin Mu had comprehended by comprehending the Tai Shi divine egg. He had never executed this divine art before. Both kinds of divine arts were extremely peculiar. One was that it wasn't easy to materialize, while the other was that it had a form but no substance. They were both mysterious and hard to describe with words. In the fog, lightning flashed and thunder rumbled. One could faintly see the sun rise and set outside the ship. The mulberry fields and the vast sea changed continuously. The mountains rose and the mountains fell. It was indescribably strange. Suddenly, the fog became fainter, and a huge human-shaped shadow stood in front of the ship, pressing down on them. The terrifying pressure caused the ghost ship and fog to quickly retreat. This person was actually powerful enough to drag the ghost ship back from the past to the present. Outside the ghost ship, the sun rose from the east and set in the west. The blue sea turned into mulberry fields and mountains rose. Wei Suifeng was already executing the unchanging divine art of the ghost ship, and he shouted, "Junior brother!" Qin Mu no longer hesitated. With a furious shout, he gathered all of his strength to execute the Tai Shi divine art. The unchanging divine art and the Tai Shi divine art burst forth at the same time, and the two divine arts collided. Wei Suifeng's magic power surpassed Qin Mu by countless times, while Qin Mu's Tai Shi divine art countered the unchanging divine art. The two clashed, and in that instant time and space seemed to become completely chaotic, no longer existing. Everyone on the ship seemed to have fallen into a strange state where they were neither alive nor dead. Even the fog that filled the surging river was changing violently. The mysterious expert who had tried to drag the ghost ship back to the present couldn't help but cry out in alarm. He increased his magic power and tried his best to drag the ghost ship back to the present. At this moment, the collision between the two kinds of divine arts became even more intense. Even an existence like this couldn't help having a huge change in expression. He hurriedly let go of the ghost ship and sprinted along the fog, trying to return to the present. That mysterious strong practitioner only saw the heaven and earth outside the fog become extremely unreal, becoming distorted like layers of whirlpools, trying to pull him into them. He escaped frantically, but the whirlpool spun faster, forcing him to muster all his strength to run faster. He looked back and saw a strange sight in the center of the whirlpool. Over there, the substance on the ghost ship was disintegrating, and time and space were collapsing. On the ghost ship, Qin Mu, Wei Suifeng, and the thousands of feathered forest guards seemed to have transformed into human-shaped energy bodies. They no longer existed, but they existed at the same time. The ghost ship is finished. The corpse of Celestial Empress on the ghost ship is also finished. When the mysterious strong practitioner saw the terrifying light bursting forth from the ghost ship, he hurriedly turned his head and escaped in a panic. Boom! The dazzling light drowned and swallowed everyone and everything in the fog. At the same time, the mysterious expert finally escaped from the ghost ship when the light reached his body. He had yet to recover from his shock when everything in front of his eyes returned to normal. The world and time were no longer warped. He let out a sigh of relief and looked around. He saw Heavenly Lady Yen carrying the white cat and standing by the riverside, smiling at him. "Your Majesty." Heavenly Lady Yen smiled as she looked at the white cat's head. The white cat, on the other hand, had its fur standing on end and was purring while staring at him. The mysterious strong practitioner dispersed the divine light that shrouded his face, revealing Celestial Venerable Zhao's face. Heavenly Lady Yan's gaze flickered as she consoled the white cat in her arms. "Your Majesty seems to be very concerned about my corporeal body. How ironic. When I was alive, Your Majesty didn't care about me at all, but after I died, you acted so hypocritically and even risked your life to obtain my corporeal body." She suddenly sneered. "That's right, Your Majesty doesn't care about me. You just want to take my corporeal body to threaten me." Celestial Venerable Zhao revealed a smile and said, "Zitong, I missed you, so I risked my life to barge into the ghost ship to meet you. Don't you understand my feelings for you?" Heavenly Lady Yen sneered and said, "Transforming into a human and sleeping with my sister is also my intention? When a slut kills me, others won't be able to tell, but you can't. Yet, you went to sleep with Ju Wuchen again. That's right, you even slept with the new Mother Earth, the girl born from the primordial tree. You can't control your lower body. Celestial Venerable Xiao said gently. Zitong, I just made a mistake that all men would make. Aren't you the same? You and Celestial Venerable you. Shut up. Heavenly Lady Yan's face was as cold as ice, and she said coldly, There's no love between me and Celestial Venerable you. You aren't a gentleman, he is. I supported him because I saw the future of the ancient gods, but I didn't expect you to kill him. Yet you couldn't save the fate of the ancient gods. Your brain has grown into your lower body. Celestial Venerable Xiao looked slightly embarrassed. Heavenly Lady Yan's anger turned into joy, and she said with a smile, Even though I have nothing to do with Celestial Venerable you, in order to take revenge on you, I have raised some male companions. Little 7, come and meet Celestial Emperor. The white cat in her arms dispersed its fierce aura and lazily licked its paws before meowing. Celestial Venerable Zhao's expression instantly became extremely ugly. Meow. The white cat lazily snuggled into Heavenly Lady Yan's embrace. Celestial Venerable Zhao's expression became even uglier. Heavenly Lady Yan chuckled. You scheme to seize my corporeal body in order to control me firmly once again, right? What a pity, what a pity. I have already used this death to escape the restraints of the ancient gods. The me now is even stronger than before. Celestial Venerable Zhao's expression returned to normal, and she said gently, Zitong, you and I are both ancient gods after all. This world can't tolerate us. If my identity is exposed, I will die and so will you. Therefore, we should give up our prejudices and support each other. Heavenly Lady Yan said leisurely, When you meet that slut again, will you kick me away? Celestial Venerable Zhao's expression froze. Heavenly Lady Yan left with the white cat in her arms and said with a smile, Men, no matter what, this corporeal body is my corporeal body. Even though I'm not in a hurry, it's still mine. I'll take it back myself. Don't think of having any crooked ideas. Her voice turned cold. Don't forget, your desire to kill you with that slut's precious son is even higher than killing me. Be careful of me joining forces with him to get rid of you completely. Celestial Venerable Zhao's expression wavered. The light on the ghost ship dispersed and Qin Mu, Wei Suifeng, and the rest stood on the deck. Suddenly a hoarse voice rang out. Have we gotten rid of the ghost ship? Qin Mu looked toward the source of the voice and saw that the person who had spoken was King Dragon Count. He had already broken free from his petrified state and turned into a pure glowing body. He still maintained the form of Dragon Count. Dragon Count was a huge dragon race during the Dragon Han era. He had the head of a dragon and the body of a human, and he could transform into a huge dragon. His bloodline was extremely ancient, and it was rumored that he was the descendant of a divine dragon, transformed from the dragon's vein of the ancestral court. In the palace formed by light, 8 dragon counts walked out in human forms. Just like the king of Dragon Count, they were freed from their petrified state and turned into purely glowing bodies. Not only them but everyone on the ship, including Wei Suifeng and the Emperor's corpse, also became balls of energy. Even the ghost ship maintained this strange form. There was only energy and no substance. This was the state of Taishu. This situation isn't good. A dragon count looked at his hands in fear and excitement. He hissed, My flesh, my body. I don't have a corporeal body anymore. Where's my primordial spirit? The more he spoke, the more excited he became, and the light in his body became brighter. Qin Mu's expression changed drastically and he shouted, Don't be agitated. Boom! The energy in Dragon Count's body went out of control, and an incomparably terrifying energy burst forth. Everyone hurriedly flew in all directions, and the violent power drowned everyone on the ghost ship. The celestial river exploded and was sliced into 2 by this terrifying power. Just as Qin Mu and the rest escaped from the celestial river, they were blown away by this uncontrollable energy. Qin Mu only heard Wei Suifeng's voice and shouted, Steady your mind, don't be agitated. If you are agitated, the energy in your body won't be able to maintain its form. Just as he said that, the ghost ship was also lit up by the explosion of Dragon Count. Everyone looked at the huge ship that was over 100 miles long in fear. If this ship exploded, boom! The energy that could annihilate everything exploded, and the ghost ship completely transformed into energy that was out of control. It was 10,000 times stronger than the energy fluctuations created by Dragon Count's explosion. Everyone felt despair in their hearts. At such a close distance they had no way of dodging. Right at this moment, a peach blossom floated and appeared on the broken celestial river. The branch spun and the petals fell. One petal was like a world, and the pink petals separated the energy. The divine art of that peach blossom was extremely intricate, and its petals sliced through the air. It seemed to grow larger, gradually filling up heaven and earth, making everyone see nothing else. The ghost ship's energy completely exploded, but the incomparably violent impact couldn't break through the worlds formed by the peach blossoms. However, everyone outside the peach blossom petals felt the incomparably terrifying fluctuation, and their expressions changed drastically. If this ripple were to reach their bodies, the energy, time, and space in their bodies would completely explode and cease to exist. Finally, the ripples subsided. Celestial Venerable You. Qin Mu looked at the swirling peach blossom petals in a daze, and his heart trembled with excitement. He hurriedly tried his best to stabilize his mind. Right now they couldn't have any emotional fluctuations. After all, they didn't have corporeal bodies and were just energy bodies. Emotions were energy fluctuations. Energy fluctuations meant that the energy was unstable and could explode at any time. There was no substance binding energy in their bodies. If they exploded, they would be completely annihilated. Everything would be gone, including the black soul sand. This might be another divine art that completely destroys the soul, Qin Mu thought to himself and was slightly puzzled. He was actually still in the mood to ponder about divine arts in such a situation that was neither life nor death. At this moment, the rotating peach blossom petals became smaller, as they contracted continuously. A woman with long hair fluttered in the wind as she flew over. She was like a goddess in the moon palace. She gently stretched out her hand and guided the two celestial rivers. She connected the celestial river together and stretched out her thumb and middle finger to pinch the bare peach branch. The swirling petals flew over one after another and landed on the peach branch, forming another peach blossom. The stamen gently swayed. The woman lowered her head to sniff the peach blossom, but the peach blossom shattered into pieces. The peach blossom was just an ordinary peach blossom, and it was her divine art that had blocked the energy explosion of the ghost ship. However, how could the peach blossom withstand such a terrifying impact? Thus it was still destroyed. What a pity! The woman revealed a look of pity, and her expression was slightly sorrowful. However, she soon became happy again and said with a smile, "Falling in love isn't a heartless thing. Turning into spring mud will protect the flower even more. If I plant you, you will transform into a peach tree next year, and the peach tree will transform into a peach forest. It might even grow throughout the heavens in 10,000 worlds." She put away the peach branch and looked at Qin Mu and the rest with curiosity. Qin Mu flew forward and bowed. "We meet again, Celestial Venerable You." This woman was Celestial Venerable You. The astonishment on her face became more intense.
Celestial Venerable Mu.
She was surprised and delighted. Qin Mu nodded his head helplessly and said, "It's me." Celestial Venerable You hurriedly went forward and wanted to grab his hand, but she grabbed nothing. She was stunned, but when she tried to grab again, she still grabbed nothing. Qin Mu said helplessly, "Our current situation is a little special. It's hard to explain in a few words. Over there is my senior brother, Wei Suifeng, and a few friends." Wei Suifeng hurriedly walked over to pay his respects. Feng Qian saw Celestial Venerable You from afar, and didn't dare to go forward. However, the High Emperor's corpse recognized Celestial Venerable You, and couldn't help becoming excited. It roared, and the Emperor's corpse became brighter. Everyone's expression changed drastically. Celestial Venerable You frowned. She plucked a leaf from the peach branch and threw it out. The leaf grew larger, and with a whoosh, it came to the side of the High Emperor's corpse, wrapping him up like a dumpling. Boom! Another world-shaking explosion rang out, and a terrifying beam of light shot into the sky from the top to the bottom of the dumpling. It pierced through the sky and left an incomparably deep hole in the ground. "I lost another leaf." Celestial Venerable You sighed and frowned. The person who exploded just now seems to be a fake emperor of the North High Emperor Celestial Heavens. Isn't he dead? She was puzzled. Numerous feathered forest guards dragged over a coffin that had transformed into light. There were 2 women lying side by side in the coffin, and one could see them clearly without opening the coffin. One of them was extremely beautiful and captivating. It was a pity that she had already transformed into an energy body. The other one was Celestial Empress. She was an ancient god. Even though she was dead, she still maintained her corporeal body and hadn't been transformed by the Grand Prime's Tao.
Jinmu relaxed.
Other than the lives of everyone on the ghost ship, the corporeal bodies of Celestial Empress and Ju Wuchen were the most important. Celestial Venerable Yu, our condition is very unstable. Can we find a secluded place? Qinmu said. I need to calm down and think about it, to see if I can solve the problem we are currently facing. Celestial Venerable Yu smiled and said, Follow me. I happen to have a place in the primordial realm for you guys so you don't have to worry about being disturbed. Speaking of which, Mother Earth is also afraid of me. She definitely won't dare to provoke me there. Qinmu let out a sigh of relief and was slightly curious. Mother Earth? What era is it now? Of course it's High Emperor era. Celestial Venerable Yu turned back and smiled. It's been more than 19,000 years since High Emperor Nan ascended to the throne. In a few more years, it will be High Emperor's 20,000th birthday. She was very happy and couldn't contain her joy. What a coincidence that you are here. These few years, Sister Ling and I have controlled the primordial realm and developed it very well. Qinmu let out a sigh of relief and thought to himself, South High Emperor has lived for 300,000 years, and it's still 20,000 years since the High Emperor era. There's still some time before that huge change. Celestial Venerable Yu continued. This High Emperor is the 15th High Emperor, and he has been sitting on the throne for almost 20,000 years. The previous High Emperors are usually the saints of the human race and other post-celestial races. The races of our primordial realm are developing so rapidly that even the Heaven Han celestial heavens couldn't compare to them. When she said this, she looked a little sad. She must have thought of Celestial Venerable Yuan who had died in battle. The 15th High Emperor? Qinmu felt a chill down his spine and immediately felt the energy in his body becoming unstable. He hurriedly controlled his emotions. The 15th High Emperor had been in power for almost 20,000 years. Didn't that mean he was very close to the High Emperor Calamity? Celestial Venerable Ling and Celestial Venerable, you were both killed during this period. Celestial Venerable Ling fell into an eternal cycle, while Celestial Venerable, you lost both her legs and became disabled. Celestial Venerable Yu examined him curiously and secretly stretched out her hand to poke his body. Her hand passed through Qinmu's body, but she didn't touch anything. What she touched was an extremely terrifying energy. Sister Yu, stop fooling around, Qinmu said helplessly. Celestial Venerable Yu retracted her hand, and after a moment, she couldn't resist poking him again. Qinmu said helplessly, stop fooling around, it's true. Even though it doesn't hurt, I still feel weird. Celestial Venerable Yu was no longer mischievous. She looked back and saw Wei Suifeng leading tens of thousands of feathered forest guards to carry Celestial Empress' coffin as they followed behind. In the distance, King Dragon Count, the 7 Dragon Counts, and Feng Chuyun looked from afar. Aren't they coming? Celestial Venerable Yu asked curiously. Qinmu waved his hand and shouted, King Dragon Count, Sister Chuyun, come over together. Only I can solve this divine art. Without me, you guys could explode at any time. King Dragon Count was helpless and said in a low voice, let's follow. Feng Chuyun also hesitated and looked at the sky of the primordial realm. To the north, a celestial heavens made of pure divine metal floated above the primordial tree. That was Mother Earth's North High Emperor celestial heavens. I'm in that celestial heavens. Feng Chuyun followed the group, and a strange feeling rose in her heart. Her other self also existed in this world. However, I can only betray Mother Earth and follow Celestial Venerable Mu all the way to the underworld. What a hopeless situation. Qinmu and the rest followed Celestial Venerable Yu to the land of the primordial realm. Their group was simply too eye-catching. They were all glowing energy bodies attracting attention. Thus, Celestial Venerable Yu used her space technique to distort the space around them, so that people couldn't see them. On the other hand, Qinmu and the rest could go outside and see that the people of South High Emperor were rich. There were god cities of all sizes, and the gods protected the people of a region. The gods of South High Emperor weren't just humans, but a mix of thousands of races. There were many sacred races in the post-celestial races, and many of the people were from other races. Humans were just a part of them. Humans and other races lived together. And on the streets and fields, there were scenes of all races getting along harmoniously. When they passed by a god city, they even saw a stone tablet outside the city. On it were the words "Human life is greater than heaven." The people here aren't just referring to humans, but all life forms and races with intelligence are humans. Celestial Venerable Yu smiled and said, "This is the philosophy of the current High Emperor. He has a lot of ideas and is a very powerful person. Furthermore, he has done quite well." Qin Mu stopped and looked at the stone tablet for a long time before following her. Celestial Venerable Yu led them for a long time, smiling happily. She should have experienced a long period of setbacks. After Celestial Venerable Yun died, she announced her retirement and no longer appeared in the world. Qin Mu could imagine how great the impact of Celestial Venerable Yun's death and the fall of the Heaven Han Celestial Heavens was on her. However, she still walked out of her defeat and supported the High Emperor era with Celestial Venerable Ling, establishing the High Emperor Celestial Heavens. The High Emperor Celestial Heavens was the work of Celestial Venerable Ling and her, but Celestial Venerable Ling was a research maniac. She focused all her energy on researching unchanging divine arts, especially in the later stages of the High Emperor era. Celestial Venerable Ling's divine art was almost complete, so she wouldn't waste her energy. Thus, she had to manage all the big and small matters of the High Emperor era, handle the relationship between the High Emperor Celestial Heavens and the extraterritorial Celestial Heavens, and deal with the forces of the North High Emperor Celestial Heavens and Mother Earth. Qin Mu could imagine how much effort she had put in. Of course, it was also because she had taken care of everything properly. The High Emperor era could be said to be the most resplendent era. Among them, North Emperor was more barbaric and overbearing. He followed the primitive rules of the ancient gods. Crimson Light Son of God sent an envoy to the primordial realm to look for High Emperor. The person he had gone to should have been North High Emperor. However, when he saw an incomparably terrifying and barbaric sight, he was so scared that he didn't dare to come into contact with High Emperor era. On the other hand, South High Emperor civilization was highly developed and had many achievements. He gave birth to many strong practitioners on Emperor's throne that were much more powerful than the Dragon Han era, and left behind all kinds of Emperor's throne techniques. Not only that, but the spirit of this era was also passed down, affecting founding Emperor era and even the Eternal Peace era. Among them, Celestial Venerable Yu contributed greatly. Qin Mu looked at the woman in front of him in admiration. She had sacrificed too much for this era. However, the extraterritorial Celestial Heavens harvest was imminent. The High Emperor era was about to be wiped out along with Mother Earth's death, Celestial Venerable Ling's disappearance, and Celestial Venerable Yu's crippling. His heart ached. Celestial Venerable Yu was talking and laughing. Suddenly she smiled mysteriously and said, "The place in front is where I live. There's still something here that terrifies you. You definitely didn't expect." She couldn't help herself and told Qin Mu directly. She giggled and said, "South deity Zhuke gave birth to a child with someone and hurriedly sent the egg to me before it was even born. She said that it was no longer safe at her place and asked me to raise this child for her. This child was born a long time ago and is a girl. Eat the eggshell." Qin Mu's eyes lit up. Celestial Venerable Yu chuckled and said, "Her name is Yenner. She's a considerate girl who knows how to stick to people. The people in my palace have all been fed by her until they are white and chubby. If I don't restrain myself a little, I will also be fed until I'm white and fat. I also have a disciple called Xiaoyu who is almost unable to fly after being fed by her." Qin Mu smiled and nodded. He couldn't help imagining Red Deity Qi Xiaoyu, the nine-headed phoenix, being fed until she was round and couldn't fly. "We can't let her see you. If you explode in excitement, that would be terrible." Celestial Venerable Yu revealed a worried expression again and said, "I'll keep a close eye on her and won't let her run to your place. This girl is clingy and likes to feed people with her mouth. Girls are good, but boys can't resist such temptation." When they reached her palace, Celestial Venerable Yu brought them into it and said, "I'll fold some space and let you guys stay temporarily. Yenner won't come in." I'm staying here to suppress Mother Earth. As long as I'm here, she won't dare to be impudent. When you're free from this strange state, I'll bring you to the High Emperor Celestial Heavens. Sister Ling is there. When she sees you, she can't help but go crazy from excitement. Qinmu nodded with a smile. You can't be excited, it's really boring. You guys stay here first. If you can't undo your current state, I'll go find Sister Ling and drag her out of the study no matter what. Celestial Venerable Yu rolled her eyes and secretly poked Qinmu's body again. Qinmu said helplessly, Sister Yu, stop playing. Celestial Venerable Yu chuckled and turned to leave. I still have some administrative matters to attend to, so I don't have much time left in the palace. I'll come back to visit you guys after I'm done. That's right. She stretched out her hand and drew a door. She said with a smile, don't run out of this door. If you run out, others will definitely be scared half to death when they see your forms. Also, the space here follows the sun, and there will never be night. You don't have to worry about returning to your era. Qinmu nodded his head gently. This place wasn't bad. There were heaven and earth, mountains and clear waters, and there were no outsiders to disturb him. This allowed him to calm down and study his strange state. Celestial Venerable Yu closed the door and left. Wei Suifeng immediately went to settle the soldiers of the Feathered Forest Guards. King Dragon Count and the 7 Dragon Counts also found a place to stay temporarily and didn't disturb Qinmu. Qinmu tried to execute his divine art, but he realized that it could still be used. Not only that, the speed at which it was executed was even faster. Divine arts are unique spells created by people using great Tao laws to transform into powerful energy. We have become glowing energy bodies, so the speed of us using divine arts is even faster. Qinmu muttered to himself for a moment and tried to execute Overlord Body 3 Elixir technique. What astonished him was that he could also execute Overlord Body 3 Elixir technique, but the energy in his body was unstable when the technique was circulating and could explode at any time. He hurriedly stopped and said in a low voice, the Overlord Body 3 Elixir technique, being able to activate it shows that my primordial spirit, spirit embryo, divine treasures, and celestial palaces still exist. They are merely transforming into a state of energy, and are no longer substances. Suddenly Qinmu was stunned. He suddenly realized that there was something in his body that hadn't been assimilated by the Grand Prime's divine art. That was his third eye. His eye wasn't assimilated. In my eyes are the egg fragments of the Tai Chu divine egg, Earth Counts Qin Wordland, Grand Primordium divine stone, Tai Shur egg, half of Tai Su egg white, as well as all kinds of treasures, Mistress Yuanmu's coffin and corporeal body. Qinmu's heart pounded wildly, and he immediately felt that he was about to explode again. He hurriedly composed himself. There's also Taiji Divine Stone and Taiji Origin Stone. That's right, Taiji Origin Stone. The Tao of Tai Shur had a form but no substance, which was why Qinmu and the rest had become glowing energy bodies. The Tao of Taiji was the Tao of Yin and Yang. Energy transformed into all things, and the Tao of Yin and Yang evolved into all the Tao in the world. The only way to solve our current predicament is the Taiji Divine Stone and Taiji Origin Stone. When Qinmu thought of this, he immediately took out a few pieces of Taiji Divine Stone and Taiji Origin Stone. He only had one Taiji Origin Stone, but he had over 100 Divine Stones. In the past, he had felt that he understood the path of Yin and Yang derivation of the Great Ultimate Tao very well. His spirit embryo divine treasure was the intersection of Yin and Yang. However, after coming into contact with the true Great Ultimate Mineral Vein, and witnessing the strange events in the Great Ultimate Mineral Vein, he wasn't so sure anymore. The evolution of Yin and Yang allowed the substances in Great Tao to change in many ways. It even changed the species and the rules of Great Tao. It was truly marvelous and indescribable. However, during that trip to the Taiji mine, he had also benefited greatly because he had absorbed a portion of the power of the Taiji Divine Stone and the Taiji mine. His understanding of Taiji's derivation of Yin and Yang was much deeper than before. At that time he was in the mine, and the Tai Chi mine controlled the masters of creation to kill him time again. However, he used the unchanging substance divine art to return to the origin time again, using it to comprehend the principle of solving the evolution of Yin and Yang. At the last strike, the Taiji mine controlled the Yin and Yang Qi to tunnel into his body, trying to assimilate Qinmu. However, Qin Mu still relied on the incomparably mysterious paths, skills and divine arts to swallow the yin and yang qi that had invaded his body. Thus, he also obtained a portion of the power of the mine. The two ancient gods in the Taiji divine egg gave me this Taiji origin stone, which could be said to have saved my life. Qin Mu first tried to mobilize the power of the Taiji divine stone. Even though he had a deep understanding of the Tao of Taiji, he wasn't an ancient god of the mine after all. He had to first try to control this power. The Taiji divine stone slowly floated up in his palm, and Qin Mu felt the energy in his body merging into it, slowly transforming into yin and yang qi. This kind of situation was very marvelous, making people click their tongues in wonder. From energy to yin and yang qi were also substances. When energy turned into substances, everything would flow naturally. However, pure yin and yang qi can't restore my corporeal body. Qin Mu muttered to himself irresolutely. He had obtained the yin and yang qi in the Taiji mind vein, which contained many complicated principles of yin and yang evolution. He wanted to enter the dream to deduce and organize them. It was just that his current state was very unstable. Entering a dream relied on his powerful thinking ability to transform into thousands of clones. The amount of thoughts he could mobilize was extremely huge, and it was very likely that he would lose control of the energy in his body. He could only give up on this thought for the time being and slowly organize the path of yin and yang evolution to comprehend the power of the Taiji divine stone. From Taiji divine stone to Taiji origin stone, from shallow to deep, he could only take it slowly. Unknowingly, more than 10 days had passed, but Celestial Venerable you still hadn't returned. Qin Mu had also slowly mastered the power of the Taiji divine stone, and his understanding of the reason hidden in the mine had increased. There was no one to disturb them, and it was very quiet. The feathered forest guards were a troop that completely obeyed the orders of their commander, and Wei Suifeng was the commander. With a command, the feathered forest guards sat upright without moving. They had no other thoughts in their hearts, and their discipline was so strict that it made people fearful. The hen dragon Lin Xiao was subdued by Wei Suifeng and didn't dare to make any moves. As for King Dragon Count Feng Chuyun and the rest, they couldn't sit still. As time passed, they became more restless. Luckily, they would always come to their senses when they were about to explode. King Dragon Count. Qin Mu finally got up and called King Dragon Count over. He said with a smile, "I need some energy bodies of Dragon Count to test if my gains over the past few days can solve our current state." King Dragon Count's expression changed slightly, and he sneered. "Junior, you want to use us as a test? Who do you think you are? What is a dignified celestial venerable to you?" Wei Suifeng walked over and sneered. "King Dragon Count, aren't you too daring?" The dragon skin on King Dragon Count's face trembled. He was fearful of Wei Suifeng. It was Wei Suifeng who had brought the feathered forest guards to eradicate Dragon Count country and suppress the chaos of Dragon Count. He had beheaded countless Dragon Counts and sacrificed them to the Dragon Han celestial heavens. Even he was captured by Wei Suifeng. Celestial Venerable Mu is the 9th Celestial Venerable of the Dragon Han Celestial Venerable. He is indebted to the people of the world for imparting his teachings. From ancient times until now, anyone who meets him, even the 10 Celestial Venerables of the celestial heavens, will have to call him Tao Brother. Wei Suifeng said indifferently, "He saved your life, and not only did you not repay him, you even spoke rudely. You're impotent." King Dragon Count's expression softened slightly and he said, "I'm the ruler of Dragon Count country, a god born from the dragon vein of the ancestral court. My status is 100 times higher than that of the so-called Celestial Venerables. During the Celestial Heavens meeting back then, Celestial Emperor invited me to a banquet. As for the 9 Celestial Venerables of Dragon Han, they were merely small fry playing in the jade pool, so I really didn't put them in my eyes. However, since the Feathered Forest Guard's commander has spoken, I'll give you some face." He muttered to himself for a moment, then summoned a Dragon Count and said, "Remove a dragon scale from you and let this Celestial Venerable Mu test it." Dragon Count felt humiliated. King Dragon Count snorted coldly and pulled out a dragon scale from his body. Dragon Count's face twitched as he stood at the side with a wronged expression. Qin Mu took the dragon scales and immediately executed the Taiji divine stone to test his new achievements. He didn't take the sarcasm in King Dragon Count's words to heart. Wei Suifeng and King Dragon Count looked at the dragon scale nervously. They were indescribably excited and hurriedly suppressed their emotions. As Qin Mu executed it, the Taiji God Stone statue lost its fixed form and transformed into black and white yin and yang qi that swirled around the dragon scales. A marvelous power burst forth from the divine stone and changed the physical structure of the dragon scales. This dragon scale was just a body of energy in the shape of a dragon scale, and had no substance. However, under the effect of yin and yang qi, the dragon scale gradually formed a substance. Everyone found it hard to suppress the excitement in their hearts, but they had no choice. It was truly tiring. When he saw that the dragon scales had already transformed by more than half, the process of the dragon scales changing from energy to matter rapidly reversed, changing from matter to energy. The dragon scales quickly shone, and the light became brighter. Wei Suifeng's expression changed drastically, and he hurriedly swept his sleeves to sweep up the dragon scale into the sky. Boom! Matter was annihilated and energy erupted. It was as if there was an additional sun in the sky. It was incomparably terrifying and didn't disperse for a long time. One more, Qin Mu said with a slight frown. King Dragon Count beckoned to that Dragon Count. That Dragon Count had a bitter expression and walked forward unwillingly, having another dragon scale plucked out by him. After a moment, Wei Suifeng swept his sleeves, and another sun appeared in the sky. The sun in front of him had yet to completely dissipate. One more, Qin Mu said without raising his head. King Dragon Count plucked another piece from that Dragon Count's body, and Qin Mu took it. He adjusted the strength of his hand techniques and tested it again. One more. King Dragon Count plucked that Dragon Count until he was bald. He waved his hand and let that Dragon Count off. He changed into a new Dragon Count and continued to pluck the scales. More than a month had passed, and the explosions in the sky came wave after wave. Qin Mu had failed countless times, but he had never succeeded once. The green chi on King Dragon Count's face scattered, and he almost exploded on the spot several times. Luckily, he had seen the world before, so he endured it. One more, Qin Mu said. This voice was like a curse that caused King Dragon Count to explode. He was unable to restrain his anger as his body became brighter. Wei Suifeng coughed and said, King Dragon Count, be careful not to explode. King Dragon Count came back to his senses and suppressed the fluctuations of his Tao heart. He gritted his teeth and plucked a dragon scale from his body. He gritted his teeth and said, Celestial Venerable Mu, you can't just take away our Dragon Count. The leader of the Phoenix race over there also has quite a few feathers. Qin Mu said apologetically, I'm about to succeed. Once I'm done with you, I'll go get Sister Chuyun. Far away, Feng Chuyun's expression changed drastically. Chapter 1196, Plucking Phoenix Feather. The dragon scales on King Dragon Count's body were plucked until they were bare, and even the reverse scales were plucked clean. There were no more dragon scales to be plucked, and Qin Mu even plucked out quite a number of his whiskers before finally shutting his mouth. I'm only a fine line away from success. Qin Mu was delighted and waved at Feng Chuyun with a smile. Sister Chuyun, I need to borrow something from you. Feng Chuyun's face turned ashen, and she braced herself to walk forward. Gritting her teeth, she plucked out a phoenix feather and said, This phoenix feather of mine has been tempered 1,000 times, and every single one of them is an extraordinary treasure. If I take them out, the people of the primordial realm will break their heads. King Dragon Count said angrily, The dragon scales on our Dragon Count's body are 100 times more valuable than your phoenix feathers. We have already been plucked clean, yet you still want to keep your hair. Feng Chuyun ignored him and handed the phoenix feather to Qin Mu. Qin Mu consoled him. It's almost done, it's really almost done. Feng Chuyun said. That's what you said when you plucked out the dragon scales of the third Dragon Count. Qin Mu said with a smile. It's different this time. I'm really about to succeed. Boom! Wei Suifeng shook his sleeves, and a 7-colored sun appeared in the sky. Feng Chuyun raised her head to look at the colorful sun with a bitter expression. The phoenix feathers on her body gradually decreased. Unknowingly, half of them were pulled out by her and handed over to Qin Mu for experimentation. However, it was still the same as before. Qin Mu's previous experiments had always been very smooth, but they always failed at the last moment, causing the phoenix feathers to reverse and explode on the spot. Every time Qin Mu's experiment failed, he would spend more time thinking. Unknowingly, another half a month had passed. Even Wei Suifeng was tortured by him until he had no temper. He couldn't help but feel despair, but he forced himself to endure. As the famous emperor of endless clouds, he had experienced many storms and witnessed the rise and fall of countless heroes. He knew very well that what destroyed him was not the external factors, but his Tao heart. There were many heroes whose Tao hearts collapsed from defeat, never to rise again. Even though he understood this logic, he still couldn't help but feel despair when things came to a head. Yet junior brother seems to have always maintained his original intention. Logically speaking, failure after failure has the greatest impact on him, yet he seems to be fine. No, he should be a heartless person, as though he didn't suffer any setbacks. He was puzzled, but he was also full of admiration for Qin Mu. To fight to the bitter end, this might be the reason why he could be honored as Celestial Venerable Mu. It's also why I'm inferior to him. Suddenly Qin Mu said calmly, "Success." Everyone became excited and hurriedly looked at Qin Mu's hand. He was indeed holding a complete phoenix feather. Qin Mu gently shook his phoenix feathers, and they shone with 7-colored light. They sparkled with dazzling divine light and had their own divine power. Qin Mu didn't seem to be excited at all, but the light in his body gradually became brighter. However, it was soon suppressed by him. "Everyone, calm down." Qin Mu consoled everyone and said, "Be careful of the explosion. Sister Chuyun, I still need to test a few more times to stabilize the success rate." Feng Chuyun gritted her teeth and plucked out another dozen feathers. She asked hurriedly, "Is that enough?" Qin Mu had a troubled expression and said, "Just using the Taiji Divine Stone as an experiment should be enough. Even if there's a failure, the chances of failure aren't high. However, I still need to use the Taiji Origin Stone as an experiment. The power of the Taiji Origin Stone is much stronger than the Taiji Divine Stone. Therefore," Feng Chuyun was expressionless as she plucked out 100 feathers and gave them all to him. She turned to leave and said indifferently, "I'll find a piece of clothing to cover my body. When you succeed in your experiment, call me." Qin Mu nodded and put away the phoenix feathers. Wei Suifeng whispered, "Junior brother, are we not going to use phoenix feathers? I think we can use our hair to experiment." "Shit! I forgot,"
Qin Mu exclaimed.
Far away, Feng Chuyun stumbled and fell to the ground. She then got up and left without looking back. Qin Mu used the Taiji Divine Stone to experiment over 10 times, and finally stabilized the success rate. He then took out the Taiji Origin Stone and continued to try using it. The path of yin and yang transformation contained in the Taichu Origin Stone was even more complicated, and understanding was even harder. Qin Mu had experienced dozens of failures, and after every failure, he had to summarize and comprehend the path of yin and yang transformation from the Grand Primordium Origin Stone. Even though he hadn't succeeded yet, his understanding of the path of Taiji was even deeper and his comprehension was even deeper. It's a pity I can't enter the path in the dream, and use the world in the dream to deduce the path of Taiji. Otherwise, it wouldn't take long for me to completely comprehend the logic contained in this Taiji stone. Qin Mu sighed to himself. There were many profound truths in the Grand Primordium Origin Stone. It wasn't as simple as the conversion of quality energy. It also included the evolution of the Great Tao, which was profound and mysterious. It wasn't something he could solve in a short time. However, by using the Taiji Origin Stone to change its quality energy, he already had an 80 to 90% chance of success. Using the Grand Primordium Divine Stone to transform everyone's energy bodies into living beings was enough for him to be completely confident. However, the Grand Primordium Divine Stone could only restore everyone's corporeal bodies and divine power, but it couldn't restore everyone's Tao techniques. However, the Taiji Origin Stone was different. Using the Taiji Origin Stone to transform could allow everyone to recover to their most perfect state, even becoming stronger and more perfect than before. Of course, the fur and scales of a person who had all their hair and scales plucked out couldn't be recovered. They could only grow out by themselves. Qin Mu used the remaining phoenix feathers to continue experimenting and finally succeeded. After the recovery of the Taichu Origin Stone, this phoenix feather shone with a 7-colored brilliance. The divine power inside was abundant, and it was even filled with the Tao runes of the phoenix race. Qin Mu gently waved his phoenix feathers, and 7-colored light shone. With a whoosh, the huge mountain in front of him shattered. This phoenix feather is even stronger than Feng Chuyun's original feather. He nodded gently. Wei Suifeng, King Dragon Count, and the rest looked at him expectantly, waiting for him to speak. Qin Mu continued to experiment and strive to succeed every time. Unknowingly, he experimented with the remaining phoenix feathers, and the success rate became higher. There was rarely any possibility of failure. Only then did he let out a sigh of relief and said with a smile, "Everyone, I can recover everyone." Feng Chuyun walked over with an excited expression. Qin Mu muttered to himself for a moment and threw a glance at Wei Suifeng. Wei Suifeng understood and said, "Recover a few soldiers of the feathered forest guards first so that we don't fail. After that, we'll be restored." Qin Mu said with a smile, "These few soldiers of the feathered forest guards sacrificed themselves for righteousness. It's admirable." Feng Chuyun and King Dragon Count knew that the reason why Qin Mu and Wei Suifeng said that was because they were worried that the two of them would rebel and take the chance to kill everyone. The officers and soldiers of the feathered forest guards were different. The feathered forest guards only listened to the orders of their commander. Wei Suifeng was their commander, the leader in their hearts, and he had long subdued them. Their loyalty to Wei Suifeng even surpassed their loyalty to Celestial Emperor. Wei Suifeng summoned a few soldiers over, and Qin Mu immediately executed the Grand Primordium Origin Stone. The energy in the body of the first feathered forest guard soldier gradually transformed into a heart, and a heart slowly formed. It was a divine heart. Blood vessels spread out in all directions in the heart of the god, covering every part of his body. With these blood vessels, his bones and organs were also slowly forming. When they came to the places where all the great divine treasures were actually being formed. Suddenly, Wei Suifeng cried out in astonishment. He saw that the divine treasure of this feathered forest guard soldier hadn't been restored. Instead, it had transformed into a celestial river divine treasure. Junior brother is modifying him. This fellow is still so daring. What if he makes a mistake? Chapter 1197, Modifying the Divine Treasure. The soldiers of the feathered forest guards transformed into energy bodies, and everything in their bodies was energy without a corporeal body. Now was the most convenient time to transform his divine treasure. Thus, Qin Mu immediately started to modify it. However, this was also extremely dangerous. Qin Mu had never tried to modify other people's divine treasures before. From Qin Mu's previous experiment to transform the phoenix feather and dragon scales, the chances of failure were extremely high. The previous failure had only resulted in the loss of phoenix feathers or dragon scales. Now that they had failed, the loss was the lives of the feathered forest guards. However, Qin Mu felt that he had full confidence. He didn't have any confidence in transforming the celestial palaces for others because the celestial palaces had different attributes, and the attributes of the different techniques in celestial palaces were different. However, he was one of the earliest founders of the Celestial River Divine Treasure. He might not be as early as Su Shanghua, but Qin Mu had made dozens of mistakes in order to open up the Celestial River Divine Treasure. He had a deeper understanding of the seventh divine treasure of the human body than anyone else. He was very confident in transforming the seventh divine treasure of the feathered forest guards. Wei Suifeng was extremely anxious, but he didn't dare to disturb him. He watched him reconstruct the corporeal bodies, primordial spirits, and even souls of the feathered forest guards bit by bit. Not long later, Qin Mu used the path of evolution of the yin and yang qi, and used the power of the Grand Primordium Origin Stone to reconstruct this soldier of the feathered forest guards. Qin Mu let out a sigh of relief, and the rest were also full of joy and encouragement. Junior brother, the next soldier of the feathered forest guards mustn't modify his divine treasures, Wei Suifeng suddenly said. Qin Mu was astonished. Senior brother, when the feathered forest guards return to the future, they definitely won't be able to return to the celestial heavens. They can only merge into eternal peace. The technique they cultivate is too ancient, and opening the celestial heavens is also extremely difficult. Not everyone can do it. He smiled and said, There are only 1 in 10,000 divine arts practitioners who can destroy the divine bridge divine treasure and open up the celestial river divine treasure. I shall take this chance to reconstruct their 7th divine treasure. Their future achievements will be limitless. Wei Suifeng shook his head and said, Junior brother, the soldiers under my command are more than 1 in 10,000. 1 in 100 million is a small number. During the Dragon Han era, the 9th Celestial Venerable established the realm of divine treasures and celestial palaces. The divine treasures and celestial palaces were all opened up by himself, and they rarely inherited it. Especially the 10 guards of the celestial heavens, they relied on their own abilities to open up divine treasures and celestial palaces. It's very dangerous for you to help them reconstruct their 7th divine treasure. When they reach eternal peace, they can completely destroy the divine bridge and open up the celestial river. Qin Mu's eyes shone as he stared at the 50,000 feathered forest guards. The Dragon Han celestial heavens had selected the 10 guards of the celestial heavens for hundreds of thousands of years, and they were all elites among elites. The cultivation of every soldier of the feathered forest guards was extremely high, and they were basically all in the Jade Capital realm. Furthermore, these fellows had relied on their own abilities to open up their divine treasures and celestial palaces. With such talent, even in eternal peace, they wouldn't be able to gather 50,000 of such existences. What kind of monster was this? What kind of heaven-defying existence was this? Of course, the reforms of eternal peace had lasted for too short a period of time. Even though all kinds of geniuses had emerged, the time was too short and the foundation was too little. It was hard to see anything. Senior brother, can you guarantee that every feathered forest guards will be loyal to you? Qin Mu asked quietly. Wei Suifeng said indifferently, I couldn't guarantee it in the past, but after they were assimilated by the ghost ship, I'm sure they won't be loyal to Celestial Emperor anymore. I'll assimilate with them, and in their hearts, I'll be their leader. Qin Mu revealed a smile and continued to transform the quality of the feathered forest guards, transforming them from energy into corporeal bodies. He became more proficient and soon, he restored the 100 feathered forest guards. Qin Mu looked at Wei Suifeng, and Wei Suifeng understood what he meant and stepped forward. Even though Feng Chuyun and King Dragon Count knew their place, they might not submit to him wholeheartedly. They had to have strong practitioners like Wei Suifeng and the feathered forest guards to intimidate them so that they wouldn't dare to move. Wei Suifeng was too strong, and it was much harder for him to recover than others. Qin Mu had to put in a lot of effort to barely recover him from his energy state. Junior brother, you should recover first. Your condition is very unstable. If you continue to exhaust yourself like this, you won't be able to cultivate and replenish your vital qi. Sooner or later, your cultivation will be exhausted, Wei Suifeng said. Qin Mu nodded his head. The energy body was indeed very dangerous, and the slightest carelessness would cause it to explode. Furthermore, activating the Taiji Origin Stone required the energy in his body to be exhausted. If he couldn't cultivate, he could indeed exhaust all of his energy and be unable to revive. He rested for a moment and started to recover. When the Grand Primordium Origin Stone was activated, Qin Mu's heart suddenly stirred, and his thoughts became active. Big senior brother doesn't want me to transform his comrades, so I can still transform myself. His eyes lit up, and when Wei Suifeng saw this, he couldn't help but worry that the kid's eyeballs would suddenly explode and send his skull flying. Junior brother, stop tormenting yourself, Wei Suifeng said earnestly. I'm not worried about other people, but I'm worried that you're courting death and messing around.
Qin Mu smiled.
Don't worry, senior brother, I know what I'm doing. No way. Wei Suifeng was flustered and exasperated, and he said angrily, When have you ever known your limits? Not only are you torturing others to death, you're also torturing yourself to death. You should just obediently recover yourself and stop messing around. Qin Mu nodded his head repeatedly and thought to himself, My cultivation system is different from others. I only have the spirit embryo divine treasure, and the 7 realms of the celestial heavens are just a small realm. In terms of realms, I don't have much space to change. However, the system of Tao realm that founding emperor created requires one's own comprehension, and it can't be cultivated by relying on quality. What I can change now is the spirit embryo divine treasure. His eyes were shining again, and Wei Suifeng's heart was pounding. When I opened up my spirit embryo divine treasure, I didn't have a deep understanding of the path of yin and yang evolution. Therefore, I was greatly lacking. This time, after reconstructing my corporeal body and primordial spirit, I can try to incorporate my comprehension into my spirit embryo divine treasure. Other than that, it's the Tai Su Dao. Qin Mu thought to himself, the Tai Su, the beginning of the substance. It has form but no substance. It has form but has yet to form a body, therefore it can transform into thousands of things. However, my understanding of the great Tao of Tai Su isn't deep enough. What if I can fuse the egg liquid of the Tai Su divine egg into my body? He then shook his head and his eyes dimmed. Wei Suifeng let out a sigh of relief. The Tai Su egg liquid can only be catalyzed by Tai Su divine stone. If I forcefully fuse it, I'm afraid I will become a pool of egg liquid and be eaten by others. Qin Mu had another idea. If I break the runes of the Tao of Taishu, I can add them into this qualitative change. That's right, there are also the runes of the great Tao on the eggshell of Celestial Emperor Taichu. Even though I don't know much, I can copy them down and imprint them into my spirit embryo divine treasure. This is still possible. He became excited again, and his eyes became brighter. Wei Suifeng became worried again. Qin Mu walked around the Taiji origin stone and thought to himself, I can also incorporate the Tai chaotic eggshell into my spirit embryo divine treasure, and use these two halves of the eggshell as the cornerstone of my spirit embryo divine treasure. That's right. I should forge my spirit embryo divine treasure according to the standards of the ancestral court, and not based on the universe's dry Kuan. I'll use the Taiji diagram as the center point and expand to both sides. No, I should use the huge blackwood and the 100,000 mountains as the center point. The more he thought about it, the more excited he became. Wei Suifeng immediately shouted, Junior brother, calm down. Your eyeballs are about to explode. Qin Mu hurriedly composed himself and calmed himself down. He thought to himself, the 100,000 black mountains are the divine tree that connected the 16 universes together. I might be able to use the big black tree to recreate the divine tree in my spirit embryo divine treasure. I can also use the 5 pre-celestial paths to transform into the 5 great ancient minds in my spirit embryo divine treasure. That's right, let's do this. Chapter 1198 One Tendon. Wei Suifeng saw how excited his junior brother was, but he suddenly quieted down. He knew that his junior brother was done for. He must have come up with some rotten idea and decided to be stubborn, the kind that 10,000 Kuei dragons can't pull back. Wei Suifeng lamented in his heart. Teacher even said that my temper is stubborn, that I don't have a brain in my head, that there's a ball of stubborn tendons inside, and that my actions are extreme. However, how can I be compared to second junior brother? Not only is his brain filled with stubborn tendons, his entire person is a stubborn tendon. Qin Mu immediately started to carry out his plan. However, transforming himself this time was an extremely grand project. He could only calm his heart down and slowly comprehend the Taishu egg of Taichu and the Tao of Tai Su. He recorded all kinds of great Tao runes that he didn't understand. As for the chaotic mind and the Tao of Tai Yi, Qin Mu decided to ignore them. He buried Tai Yi's eggshell in his divine treasure, not caring if a chaotic mind would be born. He made detailed plans and designs. When he was done, Celestial Venerable Yu finally returned and was in a hurry to visit them. Before she could say anything, a maid came over and said, Celestial Venerable Hua is here to visit. Celestial Venerable Yu was astonished. What is Celestial Venerable Hua doing here? She frowned deeply and said to Qin Mu, Celestial Venerable Hua was one of the people who surrounded Celestial Venerable Yun back then. I hated him for a long time, and it was also because of him that I retired and lived in seclusion for more than 100,000 years. However, it was Celestial Venerable Hua who persuaded me to come out of seclusion back then. Qin Mu said resolutely, Celestial Venerable Hua can't be trusted. Celestial Venerable Yu smiled. Don't worry, I know what I'm doing. I'm also wary of Celestial Venerable Hua. However, among the 8 Celestial Venerables of the human race, Celestial Venerable Yu and Celestial Venerable Yun are dead. Celestial Venerable Qin and Celestial Venerable Mu are in the future, and Celestial Venerable Yu has retired from Yudu, leaving only Celestial Venerable Ling, Celestial Venerable Hua, and me. If we don't work for the human race, no one will work for the human race. She got up and left.
Oh.
Qin Mu couldn't help becoming anxious. The energy in his body became unstable, and his body became brighter. Suddenly, Wei Suifeng pressed down on his shoulder and said solemnly, "Junior brother, the past can only be recalled, but the future can still be done. History is history. You can participate in it, but you can't change it. What you should do now is to maintain your heart. Don't be impatient. Do what you can to the best of your abilities without any mistakes." Qin Mu took in a deep breath and calmed his chaotic heart. You're right. He calmed down again and checked the plans he had made. He had to seize this chance to transform into an energy body and perfect his spirit embryo divine treasure. He checked a few more times and didn't find any mistakes. Only then did he activate the Taiji Origin Stone and slowly transform his spirit embryo divine treasure. Not long later, Celestial Venerable Yu returned and saw Qin Mu recovering his corporeal body. She didn't dare to disturb him and was about to leave when Wei Suifeng came forward and asked, "Celestial Venerable, why has Celestial Venerable Hu come to find you?" Celestial Venerable Yu hesitated for a moment and said, "Celestial Venerable Hu didn't let me say it out, but it shouldn't be a big deal to tell you. He's here for Mother Earth." Wei Suifeng was astonished. Mother Earth. Celestial Venerable Hu means that as long as Mother Earth is around, the human race of the primordial realm won't be safe. The reason why North High Emperor is so cruel is because he has the backing of Mother Earth. Celestial Venerable Yu said, "He wants to work with me to do something for the human race and get rid of Mother Earth." Wei Suifeng frowned. Celestial Venerable Yu said with a smile, "Although Celestial Venerable Hua is helping Celestial Venerable Hao, his character isn't bad. He abhors evil and hates the ancient gods. If it was to get rid of the ancient gods, he would be the first to rush to the front. After getting rid of the strong practitioners of the human race, he is also the first to rush to the front." Suddenly, Qin Mu's voice rang out. Celestial Venerable Yu hurriedly looked at him and saw that Qin Mu's body was still an energy body. Only his head had grown out. The first reason he had recovered his head was to open up his spirit embryo divine treasure. His spirit embryo was currently in the process of forming. Celestial Venerable Yu said with a smile, "Mu, you look weird now. There's a huge head on the light, so it's best not to be distracted and cultivate harder. Celestial Venerable Hua's matter should be relatively stable, because other than Celestial Venerable Hua, our human race has another strong practitioner." She was very happy. This person is Celestial Venerable Yun's proud disciple, Xiao Weisu. He has already grown to become the strongest existence in the world, and he is also the first High Emperor.
Qin Mu frowned deeply.
Xiao Weisu, the future Celestial Venerable Xiao, was the reincarnation of the ancient Celestial Emperor. If Celestial Venerable Hu still had a shred of conscience to consider the human race, then Xiao Weisu was truly harboring evil intentions. "Junior brother." Wei Suifeng's expression suddenly changed and he shouted, "Don't be distracted." Qin Mu was alarmed and immediately realized that he had almost failed to open his divine treasures when he was distracted. He hurriedly restrained his thoughts. Celestial Venerable Yu saw that he was still in danger and hurriedly said, "Continue with your work. I'll go and discuss with Sister Ling and the other human experts. Celestial Venerable Hua and Xiao Weisu are still urging us to make a move." "Hold on." Qin Mu called her back and said, "Even though I can't be distracted, I have at least recovered some consciousness cultivation. I'm proficient in entering the path through dreams." Celestial Venerable Yu was astonished. "Isn't this the ability of the great monk?" Qin Mu said, "I'm still different from him using dreams to enter the path. When he enters the path in his dream, reality is his dream. When he experiences reality in his dream, he experiences the mortal world and sharpens his Tao heart. When I enter the path with dreams, it's a divine art of deduction. It's to simulate reality in a dream and find the best solution from thousands of possibilities." Celestial Venerable Yu was about to speak when the world around her gradually changed. Qin Mu walked towards her. She was astonished to see that Qin Mu's corporeal body had already recovered. He was handsome and full of wisdom. The divine light behind his head was like a wheel, and his body was tall and sturdy. "The me in your eyes isn't the real me. That Qin Mu opened his mouth, and his voice became filled with magnetism and charm. It's the me in your imagination. I might be different from the real me. This is already your dream. Celestial Venerable, you blushed slightly. Qin Mu continued. This is your dream. Even though my abilities have yet to recover, I can help you achieve your deduction in your dream. Look. He waved his hand gently, and Celestial Venerable, you saw the primordial tree and Mother Earth under it. Mother Earth wasn't the only one. There were others, including Celestial Venerable Ling, Xiao Weisu, Celestial Venerable Hua, and his other self. Right at this moment, she saw herself vanishing into another body. They were currently attacking Mother Earth, and the situation was extremely fierce. All kinds of divine arts and divine weapons emerged endlessly. Celestial Venerable, you looked at those divine arts and saw that everyone's divine arts had also changed. Some divine arts were even ultimate arts that these people didn't reveal to the outside world. She even had a feeling that she was experiencing the same thing. She was in a dream and seemed to have personally participated in this battle. No. Celestial Venerable, you smiled and said, High Emperor is also an expert, and there's also Tao Ancestor and the Great Monk. They are even experts. Just as she said that, the figures of High Emperor, Tao Ancestor, Brahma, and the rest appeared, but they were blocked by North Emperor Celestial Heavens. There were numerous strong practitioners in the North High Emperor Celestial Heavens, and most of them were half-gods with terrifying abilities. Even with so many strong practitioners working together and paying a huge price, they still couldn't get rid of Mother Earth. This battle ended with everyone being heavily injured. Even though Mother Earth's injuries were extremely severe, she was still Mother Earth, so her injuries healed very quickly. The result of this battle was that Celestial Venerable Hua died in battle, Celestial Venerable Ling died in battle, and Celestial Venerable Xiao escaped. Only Celestial Venerable you escaped unscathed. Far away, Celestial Venerable you stood beside Qin Mu and looked at this scene in a daze. History can't be redone, but dreams can. Qin Mu said softly. Now return to the place where the dream started. The tragic scene changed, and Celestial Venerable you experienced this battle again. She was still Celestial Venerable you, working together with Celestial Venerable Ling, Celestial Venerable Hua, Xiao Weisu, and the rest to try and get rid of Mother Earth. Chapter 1199 Two Paintings. In this battle, Celestial Venerable you absorbed the experience from the previous battle, and no longer fought alone. Instead, she cooperated with Celestial Venerable Ling, Celestial Venerable Hua, and Xiao Weisu. She had astonishing attainments in the path of space, and no one could surpass her. No matter if it was used for battle or to coordinate with others, the art of space could play an extremely crucial role. In the previous battle, the four of them didn't work together. However, in this battle with Celestial Venerable you deploying everyone, the threat they posed to Mother Earth increased exponentially. Mother Earth was severely injured. Just as everyone was about to take her life, her injuries suddenly healed. She pulled out her roots and fought them to the death. In the end, Ling, Hua, and Xiao were all killed in this battle. Only Celestial Venerable you escaped unscathed. Scoundrel! Celestial Venerable you returned to Qin Mu's side and said angrily, This is clearly helplessness. How can there be a reason for a sudden recovery? Mother Earth can. Qin Mu said, Mother Earth is rooted in the ground, and her roots are all over the primordial realm. Almost every place has her roots. She can absorb nutrients from all parts of the primordial realm in an instant. Furthermore, she also uses primordial liquid. If she consumes it, she can instantly recover to her peak state. Celestial Venerable you held back her anger and said, It's really not easy to get rid of Mother Earth. Let me think about it. She pondered for a long time before saying resolutely, One more time. This time, Celestial Venerable you separated the land of the primordial realm from the primordial tree, preventing the roots of Mother Earth from connecting to the primordial tree. She also assisted in the attacks of others, changing the space and allowing everyone to attack Mother Earth from all directions, appearing and disappearing unpredictably. Oh! In this battle they had finally killed Mother Earth. The four of them let out sighs of relief. At that moment, Celestial Venerable Ling's head suddenly exploded, and Celestial Venerable you felt a chill in her heart. She hurriedly executed her space technique to avoid it. She turned back to look. Celestial Venerable Hua had punched Celestial Venerable Ling in the head, and Xiao Weisu was holding a divine sword. He was the one who had tried to assassinate her. The dream realm was destroyed.
Celestial Venerable Mu.
Celestial Venerable Yu returned to Qin Mu's side and went to settle the score with him in a towering rage. She said angrily, "It's fine if Mother Earth was able to recover instantly from her severe injuries, but why did Celestial Venerable Hua and Xiao Weisu kill us? Today you have to be reasonable." Qin Mu's expression was gentle, and his gaze was gentle as he looked into her eyes. He said softly, "You, this is your dream realm. I'm only letting your dream realm circulate. I'm not interfering with your dream realm. What you are thinking will be reflected in the dream realm. Isn't Celestial Venerable Hua and Xiao Weisu's idea of killing you the same?" Celestial Venerable Yu was mesmerized by his gaze, and she nodded repeatedly. Her voice became much gentler as she said, "I forgot that you are also the you I imagined. Handsome, gentle, much prettier than the real you." Qin Mu looked at her with a smile and said, "However, the real me isn't as beautiful and tall as you." Celestial Venerable Yu's heart pounded, and she was a little shy. She rolled her eyes at him and chuckled. "The you in my heart is still very similar to the real you. However, after you disappeared for so many years, my memory of you is becoming more blurry, so I don't look like you anymore. Don't you know how to paint? When you're better, paint me a painting of you. That way, I won't remember you as handsome." She roused her spirit and another dream came. At the end of this battle, Celestial Venerable Yu blocked Xiao Weisu's sneak attack. But on the other side, Celestial Venerable Hua killed Celestial Venerable Ling. "Can I tell Celestial Venerable Ling that Celestial Venerable Hua and the rest are up to no good?" Celestial Venerable Yu returned to Qin Mu's side and asked.
Qin Mu nodded.
"Sure." Another dream. Celestial Venerable Yu avoided Xiao Weisu's sword, while Celestial Venerable Ling avoided Celestial Venerable Hua's fist. The two girls had just stabilized themselves when Celestial Venerable Hao, God Emperor Lang Xian, Ancestral God King, and the rest suddenly appeared. Celestial Venerable Yu watched this scene in despair. In the end, she was the one who escaped, while Celestial Venerable Ling was still killed by Celestial Venerable Hao, Celestial Venerable Hua, and the rest. Celestial Venerable Yu returned to Qin Mu's side. This time she didn't ask Qin Mu why Celestial Venerable Hao and the rest would appear so coincidentally. Instead she fell into deep thought. Qin Mu didn't disturb her and let her think hard. After some time, Celestial Venerable Yu smiled again. "Let's try again." This time, Celestial Venerable Ling was still dead, and she was the only one who had escaped. She was a heavenly venerate that controlled the Tao of space. It was simply too difficult to kill her. One more time. Celestial Venerable Yu's voice trembled as she forced herself to remain calm. However, it was the same result. She couldn't change the outcome of Celestial Venerable Ling's death. No matter how many times she tried, after killing Mother Earth, Celestial Venerable Ling would still die under the attacks of everyone. She experimented again and failed again, unable to save Celestial Venerable Ling. "Let's try again," she said to Qin Mu with a slightly hoarse voice. This time she didn't save him. Instead, she did her best to execute her divine art to send Celestial Venerable Ling away. Her space divine art was marvelous. No matter how Celestial Venerable Hao, Lang Xian, Ancestral God King, and the rest tried to stop her, they couldn't stop her. However, Celestial Venerable Ling was sent away while Celestial Venerable Yu was in danger. When she was escaping, Xiao Weisu's sword sliced across her waist, and Celestial Venerable Hua's fist landed on her face. Celestial Venerable Hao's seal was imprinted on the back of her heart. Lang Xian's consciousness bombarded her, causing her consciousness to become blurry. Ancestral God King's attack shattered her skull. This result is already very good. Celestial Venerable Yu woke up from her dream and experimented again. After sending Celestial Venerable Ling away, she couldn't avoid death. However, later on, she couldn't avoid being severely injured, but she could still preserve her life. However, no matter how hard she tried, her legs would always be crippled by Xiao Weisu. Her face would inevitably be destroyed by Celestial Venerable Hua. "This is just my dream, all of this might not happen." She smiled at Qin Mu. "Let's leave it at that. No matter what, Mother Earth must die." "Mu, is this really a dream realm?"
Qin Mu nodded.
Celestial Venerable Yu suddenly tiptoed and planted a kiss on his face. She then ran away in embarrassment and giggled. It's just a dream anyway. Kissing a lover in a dream is nothing. She stopped and turned to look at him. Celestial Venerable Mu is a great painter. Can you paint my current appearance? I want to imprint my current appearance in my mind, so that I won't forget when I become ugly in the future. Qin Mu raised his brush, and under the moonlight, the lady looked a little shy from secretly kissing her lover. Qin Mu drew this scene. This scene was exactly the same as the painting Celestial Venerable Yu had given him. The scenery in the painting was like a dream, and they were currently in Celestial Venerable Yu's dream. Celestial Venerable Yu quietly ran to his side and looked at her in the painting. Her beautiful hair hung down, and she was as quiet and charming as the moon. However, there was a hint of shyness at the corner of her mouth. Chapter 1200 Dreamlike Fantasy. Celestial Venerable Yu was delighted. She saw that Qin Mu was painting very seriously, and he even stamped his seal as though he was painting. Man, this is a dream and not reality. Are you afraid that I will run away from the painting? Celestial Venerable Yu snatched the painting over and rolled it up happily. To her, this painting was the imprint of a dream, so she naturally couldn't take it from reality. In the future, if she was really disfigured and became ugly, she could also take out this painting in her dreams to recall her appearance back then. Qin Mu smiled and continued to paint. He drew the second painting of Celestial Venerable Yu, and didn't tell her the truth. There were some things that Celestial Venerable Yu would do no matter what. He couldn't stop Celestial Venerable Yu from killing Mother Earth. For this girl to be able to support the High Emperor era for 300,000 years, she had her own thoughts and opinions. Mother Earth had done meritorious service to the primordial realm, but she had also caused great trouble. During the 300,000 years of battle between the North and South High Emperors, all lives suffered. Mother Earth had to die no matter what. Whether or not Celestial Venerable Hu had suggested it, she would do it. Celestial Venerable Yu was such a person. What Qin Mu could do was to leave hope for her future. I'll keep this painting.
Qin Mu smiled.
One is imprinted in your heart, and the other is imprinted in my heart. Celestial Venerable Yu blushed and smiled. Luckily it was in my dream. Otherwise, I would have thought you were teasing me.
Qin Mu laughed loudly.
Celestial Venerable Yu said in a low voice. If this was a dream, everything that happened here would be beautiful memories. Qin Mu seemed to not understand the meaning in her words and said, dreams are dreams after all, and you still have to wake up. You look into my eyes. Celestial Venerable Yu raised her head to look at him. Her eyes were like limpid autumn waters. She slowly closed her eyes again. However, she didn't receive a reply from Qin Mu for a long time. She secretly opened her eyes and realized that she was standing beside Qin Mu. Wei Suifeng was lecturing the feathered forest guards from afar. King Dragon Count had brought 7 dragon counts, and the remaining 8 dragon counts were all stripped bare. They looked down and had no desires. Qin Mu was still trying his best to execute the Taiji Origin Stone to recover his corporeal body. Everything was just her dream. It's a pity it's a dream. Celestial Venerable Yu was depressed. Suddenly she saw the painting scroll in her hand, and she was shocked and embarrassed. She hurriedly unfurled the painting, but she saw that she had the shyness of a young girl in the painting, and the moon was round above her head. Celestial Venerable Yu rolled up the painting and looked at Qin Mu. He was still trying his best to recover his corporeal body, and there was another painting beside him. The world in front of her seemed to change from black and white to dazzling and colorful. Celestial Venerable Yu left with the painting. This painting wasn't just a mark of her appearance, it was also a form of attachment. Even though she was a Celestial Venerable, she was also a woman, and her emotions made her slightly drunk. However, when she came to the outside world, she quickly threw these feelings to the back of her mind. She could see the deeper meaning behind Qin Mu letting her experience those dreams. But no matter what, she had to get rid of Mother Earth. She couldn't tolerate Mother Earth continuing to prey on the people of the primordial realm. In this battle, the worst outcome would be for me to break my legs and destroy my face. However, in exchange, Mother Earth would be beheaded and no longer cause any trouble. She revealed a smile. It's worth it. Sister Ling is the most important. As long as she's still alive, there will be a chance and hope for everything. She walked towards the High Emperor Celestial Heavens with light steps, her heart full of fervor. As long as Sister Ling is here with her divine art, no one in this world will be her match. As for Yuer Celestial Venerable Yu, she's just Sister Ling's little sister, just her shadow. Qin Mu gradually recovered his corporeal body, and his spirit embryo divine treasure was constructed according to his expectations. He quietly put away Celestial Venerable Yu's painting. This time he was an energy body, and even Celestial Venerable Yu's portrait was for pure energy. He didn't hesitate to lose a portion of his energy to draw these two paintings. One of the paintings would be brought to this era and transformed into an energy body with him. As for the other painting, Qin Mu treasured it. In the future, he would use this painting to restore Celestial Venerable Yu's appearance. The most important thing now was to fulfill his promise and restore the corporeal body and primordial spirit of the feathered forest guards. After experiencing this upheaval, he had recovered his corporeal body and was even stronger than before. The divine treasures that he had reassembled contained all kinds of strange power. The most peculiar thing was the spirit embryo divine treasure that he had reopened. According to the standard of the ancestral court, the marvel contained within was something that even Qin Mu couldn't imagine. This was especially true for the 5 minds. The power of Taiji, the power of absolute beginning, the power of Taiji, and the power of primordial beginning had all begun to show signs of progress. Only the chaotic qi pervaded the mind, but no power was revealed. Other than that, he used the ancestral court as the center of the spirit embryo divine treasure, and used it as the origin. He opened up the universe of the spirit embryo divine treasure, established the primordial realm, opened up Xuandu, opened Yudu, and erected the 4 poles. The celestial river originated from the jade pool of the ancestral court, and passed through Xuandu to the 4 poles. From Yuandu to Yudu, he entered the ruins of End. He then returned the jade pool from the ruins of End, forming a huge cycle. The celestial river was formed by vital qi, and the circulation path of the celestial river was the circulation path of Overlord Body 3 elixir technique. As for the places where the vital qi flowed, such as the spirit embryo under the divine tree, the heaven duke of Xuandu, the 4 deities of the 4 poles, Mother Earth of Yuandu, Earth Count Yudu, the twin lotuses of the ruins of End, and the ancient gods of the stars and constellations in the other forests, all of them had different paths of vital qi circulation that followed the great Tao of the ancient gods in these places. At this point, Qin Mu felt that this circulation system was close to perfection. If we are separated by realms, the ancestral court spirit embryo is the first realm, Xuandu is the second realm, Heavenly Cycle Star God is the third realm, and the 4 poles are the 4 small realms. Mother Earth of Yuandu is the 5th realm, Yudu Earth Count is the 6th realm, and the ruins of End are the 7th realm. Qin Mu opened his eyes and thought to himself, these 7 realms are the 7 realms of the divine treasures. After cultivating a perfect cycle, it will be the celestial heavens realm. After the celestial heavens realm, it should be the power to develop the 5 great minds of the ancestral court. His eyes became brighter, and he felt that he had found an extraordinary path. This path was even more perfect than the current system of divine treasures and celestial palaces. It was even more complete than the system of Tao realm. Furthermore, at the end of this path he saw the 5 great realms of Taiji, Taisu, Taishu, Taichu and Tai. Currently, he was the only one on this path, but after his realm was established, the future generations only needed to cultivate along this path, and they might even reach the peak. It was true that Qin Mu's path was extremely difficult to cultivate, but with the appearance of the ancestral court, there would be people who would realize the benefits of this path and the unreasonable systems of the divine treasure system and celestial palaces. There would still be people who would come to his path and walk forward diligently. In the past, his path was too difficult, but now this path had the possibility of others stepping on it. He stood up and walked towards the feathered forest guards.